Phil Cheney shirt. It's medium. It's a medium.
I take all my shirts that are medium. I actually take smalls and sew in medium tags. Phil was super big, like big dude. Like he was always like, if somebody's like, "What do you want your physique to look like?" I would want to have looked like Phil Cheney, and now I do. I've surpassed him.
The funny thing about Phil is,
not really. I'll bet he's in way fucking better shape than I am.
He's still in great shape.
Yeah,
he's still in great shape.
And he had, I think he had double knee replacements.
Oh, that wouldn't surprise me a bit.
He had some surgeries.
As much as he works out.
I think he had some other stuff also.
He's still in great shape.
Yeah, he comes down in his company, which is, I think it's him. I don't know how many cadre he has, but he comes down and trains like Nashville SWAT, and they're in town and shit quite a bit.
He's in great enough shape. He's in great enough shape that when it's him and his girl or whatever, and I'm like, hey, when I do the John Willis, and I'm like, hey, when you're tired of hanging out with your brother and you want to come, I see the look in his eyes, and I'm like, Phil, I know you would crush me. This is a joke. Stop it. This is the Ram Cram Jam.
Pulling the Thread podcast, episode 30.
Yep, 30.
30.
Magic number.
Triente. That's in Spanish.
Is that in Spanish for all of our Spanish?
And if we're like, Triente, that's Italian.
That is Italian.
Maybe not. Are you laughing? What are you doing?
Are you crying? What's going on?
Triente. Giuseppe.
It's a Monday, which is weird for us.
It's Juneteenth.
Oh, it is Juneteenth. And again, just like you, to make me work on Juneteenth. Unbelievable.
It's June 17th, June 19th.
Unbelievable, making me work on Juneteenth.
I don't.
You guys, you too, Brandel. I can't believe
you're can have any holidays they want, but I don't think the post office should be closed. We don't even have any black folks at the post office.
The reality is it's not recognized unless the post office is closed.
Is that the deal?
It has to be a federal holiday.
Did they give that terrible bitch that runs the White House podium, they give her the day off?
I mean, she really should be in jail for fleeing a scene of a crime, but whatever.
What happened to her?
DUI.
The black chick, the lesbian?
Yes. A full-on DUI, caught on body cam footage, everything. She got a full-on DUI, and
did they have her
left
stop?
the scene. They stopped her and everything.
And she drove away.
She didn't drive away. I think somebody from the White House came and picked her up, but they fucking pushed that right underneath the rug. And not to mention there's a bunch of other things that she's been doing that is actually illegal. Oh, speaking of illegal, did you see that the guy, the FTX cryptocurrency guy, the one that stole billions of dollars from everybody and then went hid in the Bahamas and they extradited him?
Sam, what's his name? Has he been suicided?
No. The impartial and above board Department of Justice dropped all charges on him. Amazing.
Because all of the Department of Justice in the White House.
Yeah, amazing that
made a shit ton of money
because he was fucking funneling money to the Democratic Party that somehow he's not accountable to.
A bunch of the money that went over to Ukraine went back through his deal.
Yeah.
Did you see the whistleblower a couple of weeks ago? Did you hear about the whistleblower they were worried somebody would kill the whistleblower?
He just died?
She died. She was the whistleblower that was accountant for Burisma somehow or something. And during the Obama administration, her husband had some things to say that made the Obama administration look bad, and they actually he died during the Obama administration. So this is the spouse who was the accountant, bookkeeper, whatever, finance person, and she has been found dead.
Yeah, there's going to be a point there, Department of Justice, where you guys won't matter anymore if you continue to go down this path of laws are only enforceable for your political enemies.
So Andy Frisella, I was listening to this morning while I was in the shower, and his bodyguard, right? That's the dude he does the show with, the big brother, and he said, we were having a baby. They're him and his wife, pregnant, had to go to the hospital. And this dude comes in and said some weird shit. People, some people present differently. Some people have false contractions. And basically he was alluding to if you're, boys and shit. Clearly dude's wife was not. And he kicked that doctor out and told the nurse, he's like, hey, do whatever you're going to do, but we're not going to do that bullshit here. Like, go wherever the dude with the penis that thinks he's having contractions is, go deal with that motherfucker. And the nurses are like, yeah, he's on his last week of his rotation. He's not even part of our staff. And they kicked him out, got a real doctor. And but he was saying, and Andy kind of went off. Frisella's like, yeah, you motherfuckers have had the last 10 years to push this down everybody's throat. And now you're playing the victim because people are pushing back. You haven't even seen pushback. You've seen pushback for 3 weeks right now. And he said that the rebuttal is always, well, you push your religion. And Andy's like, I don't push my religion. You never even heard me mention religion until a few weeks ago. And he said, it's because you guys, things are so fucking crazy and appear to be satanic and absolute lunacy that people are like, maybe the rapture is coming. Maybe I should fucking find God and find religion. And I thought, you've seen 3 weeks of this shit. When that table turns, you're going to see the full-blown fucking crusades again.
This is
how Hitler came to power.
That's my I guess it would be my fear. My fear is
it's not going to be good for none of us.
My fear is, if you're in the LGBT community and you go to work and you pay your taxes and you live your life in your house and you're married to whoever you love or whatever, and you're just being an American. You got an American flag out front of your house. You're just a regular people. I would say regular people. The problem is when this flip flops,
it's going to catch all of them.
None of them are. Nobody's going to be safe, and that's a fucking tragedy.
It's that plus shit. Cut that plus shit off there.
It's a tragedy.
Go do your thing. You want to fuck dogs? Go fuck dogs. I don't care. Don't do it in my front yard.
And don't teach it at school.
Don't teach it at school. Probably shouldn't be putting it on the internet. You want to fuck dogs? Go fuck dogs. Go do whatever the fuck.
There's actually in the community, which I applaud. In the LGBT community, there is pushback. Like there are.
Sure, there is.
There are.
You have a whole gays for Trump group, and they're more fucking for Trump than like the fucking Trump guys are.
Yeah, there's a great guy. I follow. He's in Florida, and he is so he's so over the top flamboyant, but he just breaks down all these social issues, and it's just hilarious when he's breaking them down. But it's like the homosexual community or the male homosexual community talking about how, the LGBT community has totally turned something that would be, like a person who would have these feelings and become gay in the future is now becoming trans because of how they're pushing the argument. And then I just saw recently, there's a lesbian group that is doing a whole thing about anti-grooming, right? This is all about grooming children. Why are we doing this? Blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, there is pushback in the community, and that's the only way that normal Americans in the LGBT community get saved is if they do the pushback. If they are like, this is ridiculous. You people are out of your fucking minds.
It's the add-on bullshit, right? It's that extra. It's not the lesbians. It's not the gays. It's not the bis.
Yeah,
it's that next fucking portion of that. We have a bunch of gay folks that come, like the Self-Reliance Festival, for instance. There's several gay couples that come here. Most people wouldn't even fucking realize that. Like people, if we took some people like, nah, nobody should be able to be gay. We should exterminate the gays. And they were here, they wouldn't even know that there were gay and lesbian people here. Like they wouldn't have had an issue with it. Like it's just
that's the majority.
I think that's the majority of them. Maybe when they get together in groups. I mean, Ranger Dave went to a bar in Oceanside and played pool dozens of times, and finally, and he's like, "This is kind of weird." They're playing like old.
Donna Summers, YMCA.
Yeah, they're playing all this old music, and Dave's like. We sent him up there. We knew it was a gay bar. Dave didn't know that was a gay bar for, I don't know. He's probably there like the 12th time. The bartender pulls him aside and is like, hey.
It was, so because of what we did, the idea was we thought we would send Ranger Dave down to this gay bar in Oceanside and he would come back all huffy. You guys sent us. And so we sent him down there and he never came back. And we were like,
kind of weird.
Maybe he didn't come back. And then literally it had to have been a month later where he was like, You guys are going to believe this, but that bar that I like, that I go to all the time, they turned it into a gay bar. And what happened was Ranger Dave was going during the day. So he was going at like the downtime for any real bar, right? So you go into a real bar during the day and the pool table's open and there's probably 2 or 3 people in there. And that's what he was saying. He was like, it's so quiet in there and nobody's really in there. And then he went at night. And that's what caught him, because the bouncer was like, hey, bro, this is not where you go. This is not your club. And he's like, no, I come here all the time. And he's like, no, you don't. And that's when he's like, this is a gay bar. He's like, no, I come here all the time. Oh, it's hilarious. But I mean, again, the problem with the left is they're on fire, right? They're on fire. They're running around telling everybody they're on fire. Or I was saying this the other day. This stuff is our fault. It's our fault because we are comfortable and we've allowed this stuff to creep into the social stratosphere as far as all this bullshit going on at school and all this stuff about medical castration of young children. We've been kind of like, whatever, if they want to do that, they want to do it. And the thing about the left is they go all in. If you tell them, hey, if you come out and you're like, okay, it's okay for gays to get married. Fine, gays to get married. Then they're going to go to the next step, and they're going to go to the next step. And that's why we're talking about pedophiles right now. We're talking about pedophiles right now because they're in the bottom of the trash can looking around. What crazy shit can we pull out? And it's just the problem is because the right is not willing to go, yeah, that's dumb. Stop doing that. It's going to get to a point where the reaction is going to be fucking terrible.
You think it stops with the pedophiles? You think that's the final straw?
I don't know. I think the issue boils down to the same thing when people talk about civil war in the United States. It's how comfortable are you, right? Contrary to what people think is we're not this big fucking, we are the biggest experiment in the world. No other country is more integrated than the United States. But even within the United States, like if you go to California and you go, hey, California's the utopia for the left and blah, blah, blah. It's segregated. The gays live up in Hillcrest. The fucking, the hard workers live out in fucking Santee and Miramar.
Lakeside.
Not that people aren't hard workers. It's just, I'm just saying it's segregated.
Blue collar.
Yeah. Most of the communities are fucking segregated. You go up to Temecula, it's segregated. If you want some good Mexican food, you don't have to look because it's segregated. They're all in one spot.
Just like Chinatown, same thing.
The reality is I lived in California my whole life. The first openly transgender person I ever met was here in Tennessee.
Who is it?
Loretta Lynn's.
That's okay. Yeah, got it. Yeah.
Loretta Lynn's.
And she did it pretty well.
Yeah. She's a good person and she's trying to.
But she looks like a woman.
Yes. She's
like there's no like that's what I'm like.
The only thing I don't like again, nothing against Kat, but the only thing I don't like that, and I don't know how it's set up, but Kat teaches female kickboxing.
She teaches martial arts. She teaches combatives. I'm pretty sure she teaches motocross. Like that bitch is Laura Croft.
Oh yeah, you should see her on she rides a
Ninja or whatever.
I don't know what one of those. She knows how to. She can ride that motherfucker.
But she like a normal dude walking past would look at that bitch and not be like, "Oh, that's a dude."
No. She went full.
I saw it when chicks are like, I'm like, you just need to be a better woman. Like you're taking the easy way out, fucking trying to be a dude, like wearing dude clothes and growing a dude beard. Like you should just be a better bitch.
Well, I don't.
There's a dude that's a better bitch than some of these bitches are. So
yeah, Kat is Kat, and that's the only thing I take issue with her is her that she teaches kickboxing to women. because again,
Oh, yeah,
she has a
'cause
power issue. She no matter what, there's nothing you can do about it. She has a power issue that none of those women are going to be able to match.
Right. I didn't realize where you're going with that. Yeah.
But I've never seen her teach a class, so I don't know how she.
Because
she's probably, she's probably
think
pretty
of-
kid gloves with it.
I'm actually thinking of her as a chick. I'm forgetting that was a dude.
Yeah, she's probably. I'm sure that she kid gloves it. She doesn't go full.
Think there's an innie there or an outie?
Oh, Kat did full. Like when when she made the decision. I mean, again, I don't. Sorry, Kat, if I'm speaking out of line because I don't know your full history.
But if you want to come on the show here,
yeah, we'd love to have. I wanted to get her out to. She does
trick shooting and shit.
She does trick shooting with arrows, but she also does fire dancing and stuff. That's what I was thinking, having her come out and start the bonfire.
Oh, that'd be cool.
You know, I don't know her full story. It's all secondhand, obviously, because I don't hang out with people. But what I believe happened is when she made the final decision, when she was like, "I'm doing it," she left, gone for a considerable amount of time, and then came back. Cat.
Have you been reading the copy paste that I'm sending you through private message?
Yeah.
Do you know who that dude is? You have several Marines.
I mean,
do you know what's his name? Oreo?
I think I know him.
What do you call himself?
I don't remember. I'd have to look at it.
There's another dude has a podcast. Marine. He's getting Gunny Booker and going to interview Gunny Booker.
Sergeant Major Booker. And
he's like, hey, I want you guys to jump on our podcast with us, and we'll do it through Skype or whatever if you're interested in that. It's cool.
Sergeant Major Booker, you were cooler when you were Gunny Booker.
So are you aware Putin is very vocal, saying that you guys got to get rid of the biolabs in Ukraine, and that's what this was about. It's about the biolabs and biolabs and biolabs and biolabs. Have you heard any of that?
I mean, I know that obviously we did. It's common. I mean, it should be common knowledge now that we did have 23.
100?
No, it wasn't 100. It was under 100. But we did have a lot of biolabs. By the way, illegal biolabs.
That's why they were there.
Yep, that's why they were in Ukraine, because Ukrainian. That's the only. The reality is we were using Ukraine for a whole bunch of stuff, to include money laundering there.
I think a lot of people don't realize. I think it was 2012. Was it 2012 when during the Obama administration, we actually went in and overthrew the Ukrainian government, and the people that took power were actually executing a ton of fucking people over there because they were Russian.
Mm-hmm.
Russian, Ukraine, and I know people are cringing, and they're like, that's not the same thing. But at what time it was the same thing.
Again, what most people, it's when people are like...
That's like saying we move the fucking Canadian border and fucking absorb them and we kill them all.
But when people are like Russian and Ukrainians are the same thing, it's really not. And when you talk about Ukrainians killing Russians, what most people don't know is during Stalin's era, he was always afraid of independent. He was always afraid of independent countries. So everybody that was in the Soviet bloc, they would literally go to, a suburb of Moscow and be like, "Hey, all you Russians, you 10,000 Russians, guess what? Bus tickets to Ukraine." And they would forcibly move Russians into all these countries, Estonia, Ukraine. And so when people talk about, "Oh my God, they're killing these Russians that have lived in Ukraine," they weren't there before Stalin. Stalin moved them there in order to ensure control of those areas. So, you think about, even if I know it's terrible, and even if the Ukrainians are ethnic cleansing a little bit with the Russians starved to death millions and millions of Ukrainians.
So, hold on, Demore. And when I said that a couple episodes ago, Austin made it into a little short.
Yeah.
And people said I was straight out full of shit, or they had not fucking heard of it. It was not even on the radar that they had fenced all that area off. They were taking all those farmers, kulaks, peasant farmers.
Yep, and
they were killing them. If they found any grain in the house, they were killing them. They were forcing them to farm. They basically closed that whole area off, and it's over 7 million people that they starved to death.
Yes.
And somebody's going to get on and go, no, it was only 2 million. Like
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. They forcibly went into somebody else's country. They forcibly took all their stuff away from them, and then they starved them to death because Stalin, just because, again, communists, they don't know how to fucking farm. It's the reason why the Khmer Rouge wiped out most of their population, because they killed everybody who knew how to farm and then took people out there and were like, hey, go ahead and farm. Same thing with the Russians.
It's the same
thing. They
thing.
overseeded everything. I mean, we think here in the West, it was like when I was growing up, it was kind of taught that it was systematic, that the Russians did it on purpose, that they starved those people on purpose. But come to find out, after the Soviet Union collapsing and all the documents coming out about what was going on during that time period, the reality was that the fucking people in charge didn't know what the hell they were doing. They didn't know how to farm. Same thing happened in China. Same thing fucking happened in Cambodia. I mean, you know, if you need a good weight loss diet, the best thing to do is put communists in charge, because they're going to fucking that first year, nobody's eating.
It's like the gulags. I mean, they were putting people in gulags in the archipelago, and there's a highway that is actually made from bones. It's crushed up bones from people that had died.
Making the highway.
and that's what your 15-minute cities will lead to. Watch. Sounds great, all you guys that think these 15-minute cities and Agenda 21 and all that, all that equitable bullshit and dispersing land. Their plan is that the people in the middle of the United States will continue to farm. And what you will find is they will not continue to farm. So they'll come in, and that literally is, if you look at the powers that be, that is the plan. Eliminate fucking 90% of the population. Keep the people fucking farming, because those are going to be the slaves. And the people that remain, like Jeff said the other day, is like, you're going to be in uniform. You might not be in a military uniform, but all those, what do you think they're going to do with those camps? There's fucking camps all over the United States. Who the fuck do you think's going in those camps? They're going to open up as soon as all that shit happens. They're going to open up all those fucking coal mines. They're going to open up all those fucking repositories, everything they need. And you motherfuckers who just let that shit slide on by, you're going to be the fucking you're going to be the grunt labor.
None of the stuff that we are currently running around and pretending is saving the planet. None of it. Cow farts, coal mines, none of it. No other place in the world is being held to that standard except Western powers. We're the only ones holding to that standard. The reality is, it doesn't fucking matter. Plus, the CO2.
Why does it not matter?
Because the Chinese are opening an extension.
It doesn't fucking matter what you do in the United States.
Yep.
Because that's not fucking 1% of it. China surpasses in one day what we do in a decade.
And the other thing too is the CO2 in the atmosphere. How much CO2 in the atmosphere is a hoax?
Yeah. Look at Plymouth Rock. Right? Look at the water level when they came ashore. Look at the Statue of Liberty. The water level has not risen. It's not fucking risen. Why are the insurance companies still fucking insuring all that Martha Vineyard bullshit?
Yeah, why did
Obama in
Hawaii? Why did Obama buy an estate in Martha Vineyard on the fucking water? Think about that. He bought a multi-million-dollar estate on the water in Martha Vineyard. Here, this is the only thing you have to do. If you are thinking that what they're telling you is true, all you have to do is go, okay, let's say it's all true, and they've got the pulse on global warming, and they're telling you the truth. All you have to do is look at what they're doing. What are they doing? They're not giving up their private jets. They're not giving up their yachts. They're still buying houses that are way too big for the amount of people in their families. They're not doing any of that. They're still eating meat. Do you think Bill Gates eats fucking Impossible meat?
Or crickets? Well, I mean, he looks like he does.
No, he doesn't. He eats fucking steak. He eats steak every chance he gets. He probably throws away more steak than you and I.
Did you see during the G20 summit or whatever, or Davos or whatever? Did you see the Expedia commercials that were on all the YouTube videos? It's an Expedia commercial where you book like private travel and shit. And this lady books this thing for her and her family to go to this private island, and she gets there and all these like dudes are there in these weird fucking robes and capes, and they turn around and they're like whales. But like, how did you get here? Yeah. Expedia.com.
Yeah. That's the truth of it.
They don't want you flying. They're still going to fly. Yeah. All the shit they tell you that is bad for the earth, they want you not to do it, and they're going to continue. It's just about they want the island to themselves.
That's true. It's like DiCaprio doing a global warming video, right? He does a global warming video about how we've got to rein it in. And he has a fucking yacht that gets 2 miles to the fucking gallon. Did he get rid of his yacht? Hell no. Hell no, he still has his yacht. It's bullshit. It's all bullshit. Because if it was true, the people in power would be the first ones to give up all that shit. They would be like, holy shit, we ain't going to make it. Everybody fucking, everybody, next time we go to Davos, everybody's walking. They would be the first to give it up, but they're not, because it's all a fucking lie. Every single bit of it is a lie. There's a goddamn podcast, guys. Look it up. Al Gore on a podcast talking about how
he made it up. All
that shit he made up just to get people to pay him money so he could become rich.
Who's the vice? Is it vice president? Who's Kerry? Is that
Kerry is the Secretary of State, I think.
Who's
now?
Somebody's out there talking global warming right now.
Yeah, it's Kerry.
Yeah.
Well, he's flying around in a private plane, one person in the plane.
And his thing right now,
he's got 3 planes.
His thing right now is that cows are the biggest danger.
Yeah.
To the.
Do you know why?
Why?
Do you know why? There's the scam, guys. Here's the other scam. In the United States, this is the reason why they're pushing.
Oh, yes, I do know. Go ahead.
In the United States, they're pushing this Impossible Meat and all this fucking stupid bullshit. In the United States, it costs about $7.50, maybe a little bit more,
Nigerian
maybe a little less, to process a pound of beef, to process beef. To make an Impossible Burger, it's like $1. That's really why they're pushing this shit, is so they can get richer. Because remember, when you're making a product, what you want to do is make that product for the cheapest amount you possibly can so you have higher profits. And that's what the Impossible Burger is. It's a profit margin. It has nothing to do with health. If you take the Impossible Burger and start looking at the ingredients, it is worse for you than anything you can fucking imagine. Just the amount of glyphosate that's in an Impossible Burger is going to kill you.
One Impossible Burger has I think it's a weekly allotment of estrogen. Not you need estrogen. You do need some estrogen in your body, but for a man to have estrogen, like it has more estrogen than you should intake within it's a month or a week or something.
That's why your taints are getting so small.
Closer together.
Yeah, closer together.
Closer together.
Yeah. So,
but you can fix that. Did you see the thing I sent you about sun it? Yeah, you sun your balls.
Stretch it.
Did you try it this morning? Try it.
Sun your balls. You know what?
Don't get your butthole sunburned. It'll come off like a little butthole potato chip.
You know what'd be cool? You know how you guys came up? You know how you were talking about the underwear with the pockets?
The dick pocket, ball pockets.
Dick and ball pockets. How about a pair of pants? That has a clear window for your balls, right? So when you're just walking around,
it doesn't work.
It won't work. Why not?
It's just like facing the sun before 9 a.m. for 15 minutes. Can't be through glass. It filters that out.
So
you want to reset your circadian rhythm.
How about just an opening pouch where you can just drop those bad bears out?
Don't you have that? Isn't that what that zipper?
No,
right
man.
There is?
My balls hang lower.
What's the dick slit for? Who the fuck pulls their wiener through that hole to pee?
We know somebody who does that.
I don't know if he really does. I think he sits down to pee. You're talking about Nick?
Yeah, he said that he uses it.
I think he sits down to pee.
He said he uses it. So I mean.
Do you ever like when you were a kid, maybe you do that maybe?
No, when you're a kid you drop it all the way to the floor.
Lance does that. We're driving to Blade Show and we'll be at like a Pilot gas station or somewhere. And Lance will come running in and kind of scream and then throw his underwear and everything. He'll just be standing there at a urinal bare-assed. And everybody's coming in like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah. You just throw it to your ankles. You'd never snake it through that madness, whatever that is on the front of the underwear.
Why do they still put that? It's like that little pocket they put in Levi's. It used to be for change or a pocket watch.
For a pocket watch.
And then the first cell phones they made it bigger so the first flip phones fit in there, but nobody uses. I mean, I keep a handcuff key in there.
It's a great place for handcuff key.
If I have one of those, but I don't wear denim. You wear denim?
This has got the.
Does it have it?
This has got the survival pocket. Does it have it on both sides? No, just the one.
They never check. Anytime I've been in handcuffs, I've always had a handcuff key with me.
It's too, I don't want to say too invasive because they're not concerned about invasive, but it is a very specific type of search, right? So if you're hiding a handcuff key, it's a very specific type of search, and they don't have time for that bullshit. Like they don't. It's why they'll be like, is there anything fucking sharp in your pocket? And they'll do a cursory search. They don't have time for it. I mean, do
you remember you were talking a couple weeks ago about the chick that was in the back of the cop car, got out with a gun and started shooting?
The AR in the back of the cop car.
Dude that was listening to our podcast said that was his partner that got fucking shot. He's
That's terrible.
But that was his.
Terrible.
He was on that call.
Yeah, that was terrible. But I mean, there are things that we need to be doing. It's like the Cops episode where the girl slips her handcuffs, climbs up front, and drives the car. I think they put her in the front seat. I mean, you can't. The truth of the matter is there was a time when law enforcement could be civil, right? They could be civil. They could be like, "Oh, all right, Mr. Willis.
I think a lot of it.
Why don't you just sit down? You got your little you got your little DI, your DUI. We're going to take you in and we're going to fingerprint. We're going to do the thing." There was a time when law enforcement could be civil, but the people that they have to deal with day in and day out, like the real people they have to deal with that they see every fucking single day. I am actually myself. I am proud of the law enforcement guy that gets up every day and goes and does that shit, because I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I could not. There would be some excessive force.
Officer discretion is dead too. With
officer
body cameras.
There would be some excessive force. I just couldn't do it.
You remember getting in trouble as a kid and cops be like, "Go home. I'm going to call your parents and make sure you told them the truth," right? Yeah. That shit doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
They just simply can't do it.
I had that happen where they were like, "Go home, tell your mother we're going to call her tomorrow." And
did they call?
I went immediately home and immediately went in and was like, it was midnight. Mom, cops, they're gonna call you tomorrow. And I remember asking her the next day, did the police call and talk to you? And her exact words was, "Does it matter if they did or not?" And that's all I ever heard. I wish I'd have.
Do you have anything to add?
I wish I would have asked her that question before she got dementia, because it would be interesting to know if they called. Because again, this is the fucking 80s, and officer discretion, and the reality is we snuck out to go meet girls.
Did you ever
it was send everybody home.
Did you ever call the party line?
No, I never got to use the party. Yeah.
You used to call time, and between rings you could yell your phone number out and people would hear it. You could also call 411, and between the rings people would hear you yell your number. So you'd write a chick down, you'd hear a chick's voice, write her number down, and then you'd call her.
Yeah,
I actually met a girl doing that. We were at the payphone at Tirasan Elementary School, and this chick yelled her name out and or her phone number. She lived in Murphy Canyon. I did have a friend who his dad worked at AT&T in Santee there. The building was right next to the sheriff's department, and my friend was always like, "Yeah, I'm going with Dad to work. And I'd be like, "The fuck? Why do you want to go? Why do you want to go to?" Because his dad worked the night shift, he did the overnights there. And I'm like, "Why do you want to go?" He goes, "You should come." Are they still doing my grandma worked for AT&T or Pac Bell, and it was actually, they still had like switchboards.
He's like, "You should come one night." And so I go with him, and he goes into the room. We go into this room, and it just has these plugs, and he goes, "We can listen to anybody in town." And I think it would light up when somebody was talking, and you just pull the plug and sit there and listen to their conversations. I was like, "Oh, this is some fucking James Bond shit." No wonder you want to come here every night. Yeah.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, sure, you don't even have to pull a plug anymore if you work there.
Yeah, we used to, like, our phone, remember they had the phones tapped at Special at SOE in Oceanside. And we knew some phone guys that would come in that were shooters, and we'd tell them, "Hey, our phone's really scratchy and it's making all kinds of noise. They probably have it tapped, ha ha ha." And they would go and switch the pairs, and the phone would be fine for a week or two, and then it'd start doing. And then when the raid went down, we found out they actually did. They had 17 different phone lines that they were listening to, recording.
I think about a career in law enforcement. Because everybody, like,
it's all porn. You just hear porn the whole time.
I took the damn test for San Diego PD and passed, But then I was like, I chickened out. I was like, I'm going to re-enlist. I'm going to stay in. But I think about a career in law enforcement, and then I think about that, and I'm like, man, how fucking boring. How boring it would be to, you put your whatever 10 or 15 years in to become a detective, and you're going to work on cases, and you got to listen to people talking about DVDs. How many DVDs can we buy today at Costco? It's like, oh God, that had to have been the most boringest shit listening to those conversations on those phones. Like, that has to be 90% of it, right? So if you're,
and they're really, I say porn, but like, we weren't talking like sex talking over that phone line. I mean, we were phone call. It's, hey, I'm going to be over here. Meet me at Hana's, right? And then we'd meet and then go wherever.
But even like, you think about like,
and it was pagers. Like, if there was chicks, we were hooking up. There was no conversation about it.
But even if you think like real crime families, whatever, the Tony Sopranos of the world, and they'll be like, we have 500 hours of tape conversation, and there's usually only like 2 minutes that they use in court, right? So you know that the rest of it's like, Tony, make sure you pick up some milk and eggs and and God, how fucking boring would that be?
Yeah.
It's nice when the movies make it look like Serpico. I don't know the name of the movie, and I'm 100% sorry, but it's this movie where this cop is like, he's talking to his boss. And he's like, how come you never yell at us? And the boss is like, I don't need to yell at you. He goes, in the movies, they're always yelling at people. And he's like, I think you have other issues. And the guy's like, I've never got to, hang by my arm on the skid of a helicopter. And, he's just talking about all the shit that they do on TV that, cops never get to really do.
Did you see the TV show where Stallone was a mob boss, or he was a major?
Oh, yeah. He's, what's that? Phoenix or something?
It was, Oklahoma or somewhere.
Yeah. I seen one episode.
I think they only did 2 episodes. Like, it looked like it was going to be pretty good. And he goes in and leans on the dispensary, but the dispensary's legal weed. But it was pretty good, but it just disappeared. I don't know what happened to it. I got a couple Patreon questions here.
Oh, Patreon.
We'll go. We'll start with this one. Michael Keith asks, with January 6th being such a big deal, I believe it shows the lack of how many people know the history of the bonus expeditionary force in D.C. after World War I.
We talked about that.
It's info worth sharing. Some of our World War II heroes slaughtered World War I veterans that just wanted the money owed to them. Crazy story.
Yeah, we talked about the bonus.
Briefly.
We did talk about the bonus marchers. Okay. There's a lot of misconceptions about it.
The way I heard it is they were camped out like on the White House lawn or the reflecting lawn or something.
Yeah, they're camped out right.
And they'd been there for a while.
Yeah.
And eventually the president at the time got tired of it, sent in, and they sent
in the army.
They were burning these tents. A bunch of families, kids and wives died.
So the bonus marchers were, I don't know how long they were there. They were there for a minute. It wasn't like they showed up and then the army showed up. They were out there in front of the White House for a minute. Now, the issue was, I think
a lot of them had actually lost everything. They had nothing left.
Yes, the issue was payment that
was not due yet.
That the federal government said, hey, we're going to give you, I don't know how much money it was. Back then it was probably, we're going to give you $25 for serving in World War I. But it wasn't up yet. But the Depression hit. And so the Depression hit, and so all these veterans that had lost their homes and their families were living in their cars and their tents went to the White House, went to Washington, and was like, "Hey, how about give us that money now so we can feed our families?"
Could they have done it?
I mean, again, you look what our government's doing now. Of course, they could have done it. They could have done it.
I mean,
but
the White House staff was probably eating enough every day.
We didn't. It's setting that precedent, right? You don't, if the minute you set a precedent where you're giving handouts, you have to give handouts to everybody, kind of the situation we're in right now. And so they had camped out there, it was 100,000, I think. It was a lot of guys and families. They brought their families because, again, it was the Depression. People were living in their cars, and they had like a march area that they would go to every day, like a protest area where it was right in front of the White House. And then they had set up camps. And I can't remember who the president was, but irrelevant because there's only one person that made a difference there.
Somebody will tell you in the comments here how you were wrong.
make a difference is the person in charge of removing the bonus marchers was MacArthur. So here you have a general, future general officer, who is going to use force against soldiers that he technically served with, and this would be the first time that MacArthur would disobey a lawful order, because the order was to push them all back into the camp. So the order was push them all back into the camp and be done with it. Because, I think it was, I'm probably wrong, I think it was Taft. But because the president wanted to look out his window and not see bonus marchers, right? And so the order was to push them all back into camp. MacArthur got to the point where it was the camp. There was like this little bridge that you had to go across to get to the camp. And the president was like, good enough. Keep him there. And MacArthur was like, this ends today. And went in, and that's when they burned everything down and just routed them. So that would be one of the first.
Do you think it was fog of war, feeding frenzy, blood in the water, just couldn't stop himself? Or do you
No,
think...
MacArthur was in certain ways it was good, in certain ways it was bad, but he was an egotistical maniac, right? When you see the footage of MacArthur coming ashore in Manila, where he's getting off the boat and he's walking, he did that like 15 times. Had him refilm it like 15 times so it could look cool. But then again, he did get on a fucking PT boat and fucking run away from the fight in Manila and left all those soldiers and Marines to fight for themselves. So I don't know what a great hero he is. He may have been a very good general. I mean, he did do some good things like the Incheon landing and things like that, but I don't know.
So what happened to those bonus marchers?
They just ran them off. Yeah.
Did they ever get their money?
I don't know if we ever paid. I think we were probably already, because you figure that was the beginning of the Great Depression. I think we were probably already pushing into World War II.
Do you think they would have, had they turned the money over, would it have made a difference? Or do you think they had nothing left, so that was going to be their thing, that was their stand?
I think it was just they had nothing left, right? And
I mean, for a man to be there in a tent with his wife and children.
It's one thing to be a single person and stand in a line to fucking get your bread and your beans or whatever. But when your children are starving, that's the thing that people don't understand is when your children are starving, there's nothing you won't do, right? There is nothing you won't do. Nothing you won't do. When someone, that's the classic. I love when a woman says, "I would never kill anybody." Really? What you're really saying is you don't know the situation that you would be in where you would kill somebody, because you just haven't been put in that situation, right? If you wouldn't kill to save your own child. If you wouldn't kill to save your own child, then you probably shouldn't have kids. So it's just it's an interesting dichotomy, and I don't know. It's a terrible legacy, but the United States is, when you're empire building, we do a lot of things that when you look back on it, you're like, why did we have to do that?
So while we're speaking of killing your own kids, if you have a woman who has voluntarily had an abortion,
yes, and
then in the future has a child,
yes,
do you think she has a lesser or greater emotional attachment than a woman who has all her kids and has never had an abortion? Would she be calibrated a little bit differently, or does it matter?
I don't know if it matters. I don't know.
Correct.
I haven't had that. I hadn't had that experience. But I do know that, after the fact, I mean, it's pretty common that after the fact that it does affect those women as far as having an abortion, and then how after the fact it does affect them. How long? I mean, it's a tragedy that happens, and how long does it take them to get over it? I don't know.
You hear about during like Holodomor and Great Depression, it's usually the young kids that they eat first.
Yes.
Have you heard that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Fucking wild shit. There's not a lot out there, but it is in those writings. It's in there a bit.
Yeah. We want to, sometimes we want the most horrible parts of humanity hidden, and maybe that's a tragedy because, like you got guys running around right now talking about Civil War, right? Like Civil War. I can't wait for this. And it's like, you motherfucker, you don't even know what you're talking about. You do not know what you're talking about. You don't want a civil war. You don't want that type of battle and thing that is going to happen that will change you forever. Like, it will change you forever. It's not, you're not going to be the same guy in your basement playing fucking video games anymore. It'll change you forever. And for a lot of people, it won't be for the better. It'll be for the worst.
What about guys that have already seen combat veterans, prior service dudes?
What about them?
It's going to change them?
Well, okay. Those, if it's I say a real combat veteran, I'm sorry, but the truth is the majority of people who are combat veterans aren't real combat veterans. But if he's a real combat veteran, he was already changed. He was changed the day that happened. If you think about, I don't know, gangsters, right? Real gangsters. Or I'll say Bloods and Crips, right? I'll just use Bloods and Crips. There are people within those organizations who've never had to pull the trigger on somebody. And then there are people that have had to pull the trigger on people. Even in that type of organization, the day that happens, that person is different. He's not the same person he was before, right? It's changed him. Now, some people, it becomes a big deal. Like some people that thing, that piece of combat or whatever, that piece of trauma changes them, and that's all they are, is that trauma. Some people have that trauma and grow above the trauma, but you're never going to be the same. You're not, it's like the minute you go from a child to adulthood, right? You see how carefree and wonderful it is to be a 5-year-old, pretending to be a dinosaur. You never can do that again. Even though there's physically has nothing changed. You just have become adult. And that's the same thing with the combat side of the house, is you'll be changed. A lot of people, it messes them up. Like, I know some guys that it messed up, but again, that's small scale. Like if you think about over the last 25 years or even the last 30 years, the type of combat that the U.S. has been in, it's really, and I know,
just say it,
it's really been like police action. We've really just been the policemen of the world, right? We haven't, there has been a few exceptions like Aleppo. I can't think of the name of the place in Afghanistan that the army, some outpost that the army was at, where they were fucking completely surrounded. Little platoon fire base. Some of the combat in Fallujah, things like that. But we haven't fought under enemy. We haven't fought under enemy artillery, enemy air. We haven't fought under any of that since really World War II.
Occupation.
I mean,
we are
there was a lot of artillery in Korea, but we had air supremacy. We had, so
how many Korean veterans are even with us any longer?
Oh, I don't know. That's going to be tough because we're already kind of at the top end of Vietnam veterans.
And at this point right now, they wouldn't even be viable.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just saying that, we've kind of lived a.
Every time I say stuff like this, there's always people like, you're never going to see war in the United States. Fuck, I hope you're right.
Yeah, to assume that you're never going to see, that would assume that we've never done it before. We have done it before over more trivialist things than what is going on in our country right now. When you think about it, you have two parties that look at each other as enemies. And so the fucking Civil War, you think the Civil War was a whim. It was started for a lot less than what's going on in our country right now.
Not to mention the amount of people who have come through the border in the last, even say decade.
It's one of those things that you don't want to see it happen. You just don't want it. There's better ways to solve our problems than through extreme violence.
Do you think so? Combat veterans coming back, people that saw real combat,
Yeah.
immediately mandatory counseling?
No, they don't do that.
They don't do that.
No.
How many guys do you think seek out counseling? Do you think the counseling helps or fucks them up more?
I don't want to speak for. I can only speak for the individuals that I know, and the individuals I know that went down that rabbit hole. I don't think it helped.
A lot of chemicals involved.
A lot of chemicals involved, stuff like that. I don't think it helped. I think what really would help is they, it's not hard for the military to identify people who have been in, if they really wanted to. Okay. But again, you have to understand that the big military doesn't give a shit about the guys who are actually fighting. But it's not hard for them to identify the guys who are actually in the fight. And it wouldn't be hard to get those guys together and just fucking keep them moving. Because the problem is when what happens when we get back, or when there's any type of situation where they think John's got PTSD. What they do is they send him to a place where he has a lot of time on his hands and he's left within his thoughts. But if you get those individuals back, or just an infantry battalion, you get that infantry battalion back that has seen some shit, and you put them to task and you make them train hard for the next one, all that stuff will go away.
Do you think that PTSD and stuff like that, and the counseling and all that, do you think that's greater with basic infantry as opposed to like special operations? Because it's a different type of person.
No, but special operations gets higher tempo, but special operations gets better care. So special operations gets better care. The special ops community was getting care. When I say care, it's just was getting the type of counseling that they probably needed way before regular guys. The op tempo and the way the Marine Corps runs is it used to be a high first term user. And so that means that you would go on deployment. So if we went to Iraq, your truck got blown up, a couple guys in your truck got killed. They were all your friends because you've been with them since boot camp. We get back from Iraq. Your tour's up. See ya. You're out. There's no follow up. There's no, does this guy need help? I mean, we had a kid who was a fucking good Marine. He was a good fucking Marine. And he had some shit happen on deployment that was pretty horrific. And when he came back, he turned to alcohol to compensate for what he had gone through. And I had actually went to the fucking CO and I said, "Hey, look, this is what we got. This is real PTSD." And they were like, until he does something to get himself in trouble, there's nothing we can do about it. And so they let that kid for a year just frap out on alcohol and just keep getting himself in more and more trouble. And I'm like, this is the guy that needs the help. You got to, we had dudes that never left the wire that were getting checks, right? They were getting checks. And I'm like,
do you think that's just looking for easy money? And do you think they really think they're fucked up? I mean, I run into those guys too.
It's
a trip when people,
it's easy money.
They're like that. Hey, I'm John. I'm a disabled veteran. Like, it's weird when you meet somebody that says like that's their signature.
Their stick,
line.
yeah. Their stick, because they're looking for something.
Yeah,
they're looking for something. You're never gonna because
we know on the other hand, we know guys that had horrific shit happen to them, right? And run through and recover and rehab and actually redeploy.
Yeah, that was one of the amazing things. I know I bag on the Marine Corps a lot, but that was probably 5 years in. That was one of the things that the Marine Corps started doing that I was pretty impressed with, was rehabilitating guys and getting them back into service, because that's the key, right? The key is the key is this: you operate at a high level, whether it's regular infantry or special forces or whatever the fuck, you're operating at a high level. You go into combat and you have to operate at a high level because things are life or death. And then when you get back, you don't matter. Like the military, they're like, see ya later.
Once you have,
you don't matter. And so that's the problem. And so by rehabilitating these guys and then putting them back into service, like going, hey, we're going to get you back in the fight. It's not about numbers, and it's not about getting them back in the fight, because they're never going to be this. They're never going to be the Marine that they were before. It's about giving them purpose. They now have purpose, and they have a reason to keep going, is because the government, the Marine Corps is giving them a purpose. And that was pretty good. That was a great idea. Whoever did it, whoever implemented that policy, that was a good policy.
Do you think once you have that diagnosis, right, PTSD, and you have the counseling and the psychological drugs that come along with that, are those guys redeployable, or are they going to try to shuffle them out? Can they make them whole and redeploy them, or
so all
somebody
that
on that course is typically looking
I don't know what it is now, but when I got out, when I was still in, PTSD just became a thing. So like, the first time we went over, was the first time that 1-7 had actually seen some serious combat in a while. We came back and they were like, all right, get ready for training. We're going to go again, right? We're getting ready to go to deploy again. Now at that time, they started, people would, if you came to medical and you went, hey,
I feel a little sad.
I don't sleep at night. I can't sleep at night. Well, at that time, what they were doing is just giving everybody Ambient. So they would give everybody Ambient, and then when we went to deploy the second time to go back, you have to do 90-day prescriptions. So you have to get your 90-day. If you have a prescription medication, you got to go and get 90 days before you deploy.
You hear so much crazy shit around Ambien.
Yeah.
I wonder if you just hear the few, like the 1% that's absolutely insane and it actually helps people, or if it actually is fucking.
Well, at the time I didn't realize how much Ambient. Happening. I didn't realize how much Ambient they'd been doping. Now Ambient had just become a thing, and so
like we know some guys who had taken Ambien, were out driving, had accidents and crazy shit, and don't even fucking remember it. I know somebody who was taking Ambien doctor prescribed, and was pissing in their fucking sock drawer. Like, just crazy shit happening. Like, literally getting out, going to the grocery store, coming home, making fucking a whole meal, and when they wake up in the morning, they're like, who the fuck cooked all this food?
Yeah. Well, you got to get your 90 days of medication whenever you're going to deploy. And, like, the battalion actually came out and was like, hey,
what the fuck?
What the fuck? We can't fill all this Ambient. Why is everybody taking Ambient? Because, when you're in the rear, they're not really paying attention. But when it's time to deploy, basically you have to take everything with you. So if you had to take all the cheeseburgers with you that you ate while you're in the rear, it'd be a lot of cheeseburgers and people would be asking questions, right? And so that Ambient thing became a problem. And they're like, we can't do it. Well, now you have a bunch of dudes
addicted
that were taking Ambient, now have to cold turkey Ambient in zone, right? And so we go and do that deployment. We come back, and this time when we came back, while we were gone, there was a big PTSD push that, like, everybody has PTSD and shit, and everybody has trauma, and which is full of shit. It's not true. And so they started pushing that, and when they started pushing that, we went from a battalion that had like 0 PTSD cases to a lot of PTSD cases, because you have some people that actually had a trauma and don't know how to deal with it. And then you have people that never had any trauma, but see a way to game the system. Right. And one of my kids, he came back and he was like fucking skipping around the house, right? He's just like fucking woo, woo. And I'm like,
come here.
What the fuck? Come here. And he's like, well, I was having these issues, blah, blah, blah. And I go, And what did they do? And he goes, they gave me these. And it was fucking, I don't know what wonder drug it was. And I'm like, nope. I go, if you have issues, call me on the phone. If you can't sleep, call me on the phone. If you want to get rid of this, you have to talk it out. Hiding it with some sort of fucking happy pill is not fixing the problem. It's bullshit. It's not fixing the problem whatsoever.
Does that not make them non-deployable?
No, because it's a different thing, right?
Doesn't that turn that weapon into an unknown?
I mean, I'm sure it does, but again, the military's not very good at personnel management, meaning individual people. They're really good at personnel management, meaning it's real easy to manage, it's real easy to manage 2,000 people. It's hard to manage an individual, right? And that's why you have crazy incidents every now at the barracks and things like that. None of them are unknown. It's not unknown. The guy who's throwing the chair off the third story barracks balcony, no staff NCO goes, oh my God, Brandel did what? Oh, I would never expect that from Brandel. I would never. They go, chair, third floor. Oh yeah, Brandel, right? Yeah, I knew it. Guy's drunk every weekend. It's a fucking problem. What are we going to do about it? I don't know. We'll restrict him. And then what? We'll restrict him to what? The barracks where all the other Marines are that are going to bring him fucking alcohol anyways, and he's going to still throw chairs off. I mean, there was a point at 29 Palms, and I know Headquarters Marine Corps don't want to hear this shit.
29 Palms, Brandel?
There was a point at 29 Palms where 1-7 and 3-4. I can't remember which the other battalion was. 2-7 maybe? I don't know. But the barracks was right across from each other. And this is how they, because of the way they do things, they don't understand life. The Marine Corps doesn't understand real life. A battalion that just came back from combat would go right here. A battalion that's getting ready to go to combat would be right here. And in the middle would be a fucking like a little park where there's chairs and barbecue grills and shit like that. They would battle over who gets to use that. Like immediately they would battle, have a fucking full-on...
Who would typically win?
Oh, the fucking guys that just came back
from combat.
Yeah, that just came back.
Were they using combat techniques?
Well, it's not that. It's just that...
I just killed some motherfuckers. I'll definitely kill you.
Well, you are more willing... The battalions that just, usually...
Escalation of force.
Yes, they are more willing to escalate to a level of violence that the new guys are like... that it just got crazy.
You can have the barbecue.
So much so, it was so bad. It was so bad that I can tell you about lock and load, but it was so bad that you can Google 29 Palms. You can Google 29 Palms wars, and they have made funny videos about it. Like they have where everybody's arming up and grabbing their trash can shields and shit. While that is satire, it is based off actual shit that happened. Like there was times where they were like, you can't buy any alcohol, that like all the shit. But again, it's 29 Palms. Nobody wants to be at 29 Palms. So no adult leadership. When the fucking sun goes down, the adult leadership is gone, except for the duty, whoever the duties are, right? So the duties in the barracks are a couple as a corporal and a sergeant that live in the barracks, right? So when Brandel's like, when Brandel comes downstairs and he's like, I'm driving into town to get a case of tequila. They're not gonna be like, no, Brandel, go back up to your room. They're gonna be like, hey, what's that on the floor? What? Oh, let me pick this up. Where did he go? Oh, I didn't even see him. I didn't know he. You know what I'm saying? And then your battalion duty is a lieutenant and a staff sergeant. Okay, and they just kind of creep around and make sure nothing's on fire. This is no shit. So the entire time when you are staff duty, you carry a pistol, right? You get your 15 rounds. They're in your magazine. Your gun's not loaded, and but
you do have bullets.
You do have bullets. It was such a pain in the ass because you got to go sign for them and all that. but you have ammo. And the last time I was there, the last regimental duty I stood, I'm on regimental duty, and they're like, I go and see the sergeant major, and he's like, okay, you're going to go and get your pistol. He goes, load it. I go, what? He goes, load it. He goes, you don't know what you're going to run into. He goes, your weapon needs to be loaded.
Might be Bigfoot.
And I'm like, well, first off, I don't know what the situation is you're talking about, but I'm not going to fucking shoot another Marine over some bullshit. There's always another way. And so I didn't load my pistol. And again, that was one of the nights. It was one of the nights where combat battalion and non-combat battalion decided they were going to go to war, and they were fucking throwing furniture off the fucking.
You think it's just kind of like a haha funny, launching water balloons and fireworks, or do you think they were really trying to harm people?
It always starts haha funny, but
so like BB gun wars.
Yeah, it always starts off haha funny, but the issue is, and no one, and I'm telling you, you don't understand unless you have been in 7th Marines. Now, I did a long time I was at Camp Pendleton for 17 years, and 5 years and 29 Palms, I think. Marines can drink, right? If you're 1st Marine Division and you're in Camp Pendleton, you can drink. You can go to the beach and put some beers down. You can drink. The entire 1st Marine Division does not hold a candle to one infantry battalion in 29 Palms. Those motherfuckers just
because there's nothing else
drink.
To do.
It's because there's nothing else to do. And so they drink. Like they blew out cash sales like 3 times.
Is there a town out there?
Yeah, the town of 29 Palms, but it's
isn't 29 Palms
most of it's off limits anyways.
Isn't 29 Palms been turned over to like a Indian reservation? It's all fucking trailer parks and shit now.
No, they did a deal with
the housing.
They did a housing authority deal where they took housing people, Section 8 housing from Los Angeles County. So yeah, they drink, and so obviously if you have 18 to 22-year-olds and they're fucking drinking fists of vodka. And it's funny, haha. Hey, hey, there's a dude from 3-4. Let's throw a water balloon at him. And he throws a water balloon at him. And then the 3-4 guys they're drinking, and they're like, hey, it'd be funny? Let's fill this water balloon up with beer. And they throw, and then before you know it, there's fucking furniture and flaming arrows shooting across.
What about
it gets out of hand.
Pop-ups and
no,
smoke
it never.
grenades, none of
I don't
that?
think I ever heard of anybody. Now I did see AT4s get brought out, but those were already fired, so they weren't live.
Did those? So at that point in time, did they have incendiaries and pyro and stuff?
No. They wouldn't have any. Technically, none of that stuff is allowed in the barracks.
Well, yeah, but
yeah, but
when did we ever go out there?
No, I'm just saying. Technically, that stuff wasn't allowed in the barracks, so I don't think. I mean, I am sure. I heard a story from while we were deployed that a Red Star cluster was fired, but not.
Were you out there when we caught the desert on fire?
I don't think so.
At the MDR race?
I don't think so.
Somebody
with a pop-up?
Well, with like 20 of them.
Yeah. Those things are dangerous. Yep. Those things can be dangerous, especially if you don't use them right. But yeah, so it 29 Palms it's legendary. It's not the same, and I know the Marine Corps is going to pretend that none of this really exists, but if you go from Camp Pendleton, if you're a like I was a stay-at-home Camp Pendleton Marine, or a Camp Pendleton Marine most of my career, and then you go to 29 Palms, it's a different world.
It's like Thunderdome.
Yeah, it's a different Marine Corps. Those guys are, I got to 29 Palms. Those motherfuckers were still wearing fucking sateen green uniforms and fucking steel helmets and shit. They're just like smoking cigars and shit. Really? Man,
not really.
It seemed like it.
So it's kind of like Heartbreak Ridge when he took over the recon platoon.
No, it was way different. That the Marines operating at 29 Palms, and I'm assuming it's just because there's nothing to do, right? Are operating at a higher level of everything. Like by the time I went to 29 Palms, the Marine Corps had already gone through their hazing phase. Like they'd already gone through you can't haze, you can't raise your voice to recruits. They'd already gone through all that. Like all that was behind us. It was behind the Marine Corps. There was no more pinning. And when I say behind, it was years behind. Like years behind. All that stuff was gone. It had been beaten out of the fucking 1st Marine Division. You couldn't do any of that shit anymore. Couldn't yell at people, couldn't cuss out. It was all beaten out of 1st Marine Division. It was a big deal if you, like, again, I had while I was at sniper school, a Marine was getting out of a 5-ton. He put his rifle on the truck, and while he grabbed his rifle fell, and he got down and did push-ups, and then got up, picked his rifle, and left. Nobody told him to do it. And the CO was standing next to me, and he's like, that looks like hazing. I think he just hazed. Is he being hazed? I go, how do you haze yourself? Come on, man. That's ridiculous. He dropped his rifle. He's correcting himself. I don't understand what you're talking about, sir. But that's the level it was at, right? I get to 29 Palms, and my CO is a fucking hard charger. Like he's a hard charger. Like he's ready to Mount Sarabachi some shit. He's all jazzed up because we're going to go out in the field in a couple of days. And he's like, you got 3rd platoon. They're down in the armory, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm like, okay, sir, I'm going to go. I'll go find him. And I go down the armory, and in 29 Palms, the armory is like a big X. You go inside, there's a doorway straight to the end, and then there's 2 doorways off the side. And I go in the armory, and there's a bunch of people in there. And I'm like, where's 3rd platoon? And they're like, oh, 3rd platoon. They're out back. And so I turn the corner, and I'm going down this hallway. And I see these dudes bear crawling back and forth, just bear crawling. Now, this is 29 Palms in the summertime. It's 120 degrees outside. And these dudes are bear crawling back and forth.
On
and I'm
asphalt?
It's
Blacktop.
It was concrete. It's concrete back there, I think.
It'd burn your fucking hands off.
And so they're fucking bear crawling. They're getting thrashed is what's happening. Okay. And I'm like, they're getting now again, remember, I come from a different time, so hazing was okay at one point in time. So I'm walking towards the doors, and they're thrashing these young lance corporals, or to a point where I stop. I'm like, no fucking way is this happening.
Were you happy to be back home, or
no.
were you like, we gotta stop this?
No, it's not that. It's that at Camp Pendleton everything was a trap. Right, it was a trap. If Brandel was hazing Marines, it went uphill. It was the staff sergeant's problem, right? And so it was a trap. And so I see this going on, and I stop, and I'm watching it for like 2 seconds, and then right here, next to my head, is my CO, and he goes, he pulls up right next to me. He goes, "Yep, that's them. That's 3rd platoon, them motherfuckers," and turns around and walks away. And I'm like, I've landed on a different planet. I've somehow walked through a gateway to an old Marine Corps that doesn't exist anymore. But that's what I'm saying. It was just a different world up there because, again,
they operated at a higher level.
I would say, okay, technical proficiency. So if you were looking for whiz bangs, so if you were looking for new ninja equipment and technical professionals in new ninja equipment, Camp Pendleton. If you were looking for straight up infantry Marines that would have no problem, like if you told the Marines at 29 Palms to fix bayonets, I was just going to say. They're like, we've already done it. We already have our bayonets out. We're fucking ready. You know what I'm saying? It's just a completely different animal. Now that may have all changed now that we have a new, kinder, gentler Marine Corps, but back then, the infantry battalions, like if you took an infantry battalion, from 29 Palms and took an infantry battalion from 1st Marines, right? And you said, duke it out. 29 Palms would win. If you took a an infantry battalion and you were like, let's MARSOC it up, the fucking 29 Palms wouldn't. They'd be like, what? Helicopters? We only see those fly overhead. We don't know how many people fit in a helicopter. Fucking tanks. What, it's just a different, technically proficient to all the ninja whiz bang stuff was happening at First Marines. And I say First Marines and 29 Palms because those are my places. I have no idea what they do.
I picture 29 Palms is when you're in the penal colony or the prison colony, and you're too bad for that place. They take you to that other planet. That's how I picture. Yeah, 29. Well, I mean, I've been to 29 Palms.
Yeah, it's a fucking great training facility. It's if you can get over the pure loneliness of 29 Palms, it's a good base. It's great for training, but the problem that the Marine Corps has is it's a bunch of 18 to 22 year olds,
like an
and they need, because the way they run those facilities now, the way they run stuff like that now is when work's over, they treat the barracks, they kind of treat the barracks like it's a Marine's home, right? Like it's his home. And so when the officers go home, they go home to their families. But the Marines are still in that fucking barracks with 100 other Marines that don't have anything to do.
I don't think people realize how close that is to actual prison.
I mean, outside of the fact that you can drink as much liquor as,
right.
Having
free, you don't have to go to the commissary one day a week.
You can go whenever. The truth is you can't have uninvited guests. The reality is if you're
there was whores at the Camp Pendleton barracks all the time. There's not out at 29 Palms.
Don't say whores, John. There are young ladies.
Those bitches weren't in there playing fucking cards.
There are young ladies in every Marine Corps barracks. It doesn't matter whether you're in Akuska, Japan, or you're in 29 Palms. It's just the quality. There's a different quality level when you're at Camp Pendleton than when you're at 29 Palms. But there are young ladies that end up in the barracks.
When she leaves with the room, she doesn't go to her car. She goes to another room.
But but again, the reality is if you are 3-4, you're a Marine, you're 3-4, and you want to come over to my room and drink, technically I'm supposed to go through the duty hut and be like, hey, fucking...
You know what else is like that?
Smuckatelli's coming over and he's going to hang out. We're going to drink beer.
You know what else is like that? Prison. Mm-hmm. Just like that. You're not, if you
well,
live in this building, you're not supposed to be in this
that's
building.
Why,
but you're over there getting burritos from that dude over there.
That's why Sean Connery says the thing about being a man, a good stint in prison or the military will make you a man. It's time for a pee break.
Okay. We'll talk about lock and load after that.
Okay. My first tattoo, a huge Eagle Globe and Anchor that covers my entire back.
Full back piece.
Full back piece. That was my first tattoo.
Mine was the shmoo.
The shmoo? I like
beep,
it.
Beep, beep. Like, what's that noise he makes? Beep, 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 beep. Shmoo?
Yeah, shmoo.
What was that from? Haji?
I don't know.
Johnny Quest?
Johnny Quest, maybe? Yeah, Johnny Quest. Sounds right.
I want to get a Slee Stack costume, like a real one. Land of the Lost.
That would probably be really expensive.
I've seen them out there. I've seen them for $6.
But like real ones?
Yeah, I think they're depending what they were made of, like the material degrades,
Yeah, I would assume
when you touch old toys and they're like tacky and sticky.
I would assume if you could get a real Slee Stack costume, that it would be first off, it wouldn't be as good a quality as you would think, meaning that they were just
There's
putting
some
those things together.
There's these cosplay
shows.
people doing costumes and shit. They're just fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Because I want a sign twirler Slee Stack.
A sign twirler Slee Stack. You'd have to get one of those air conditioned suits to put on underneath it, man. It's too hot here.
No, they didn't have that 20 years ago.
I know, but you'd kill Tyler out there in a Slee Stack costume with a sign twirling.
Nah, he'll be okay.
I think it would kill him.
I think he's died a few times already.
I'm sure Tyler has. I'm sure Tyler, if you're out there, Godspeed.
I always think Tyler probably has passed away and then he shows up.
I always thought that he had passed away and his wife was
messaging us that it's really him
everybody that
because she's collecting the check.
Because she's getting that check. Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to our next Patreon question.
Yeah, what's the next Patreon question? Because that was a long answer to the fact that yes, MacArthur attacked the bonus marchers and did some pretty heinous shit.
Okay, have you guys checked out the Sean Ryan show Grid Down episode? It was like 2 days ago, so this was a while ago when this was typed out. Pretty scary. Definitely not surprised that the government is doing nothing and worthless. They are pretty confident that China will invade Taiwan before the end of Biden's term. What do you guys think?
I did not see the Sean Ryan Grid Down show.
It's worth watching. They're making shorts out of it. Even today, they made a short out of it.
I haven't seen it. Just be aware.
This is nothing new.
I know, but also be aware that when the powers that be, or when the military-industrial complex is waving a flag about something,
it's going to be them that does it to you.
But I mean, whether it's new Russian tanks or new Russian, what they're really doing is trying to get the government. We're trying to get everybody scared, so the government's like, hey, guess what? We have to spend billions of dollars. We have to give Raytheon billions and billions of dollars to fix this existential problem that's not real. Kind of like,
why do they even pretend like we have a say in it, anyways?
Well, no. What they want is they want popular uproar, in the sense that like Congress is inept and they don't have any capability of doing anything realistic until there's a bunch of Karens screaming about the power grid.
And it really seems like when you have to go before Congress, I'm sure someday we will have to go before Congress for something. It seems like
kind of cool. I would love to go talk to Congress.
I'm always like, why doesn't that guy just tell him to fuck off? Like, what are they going to do to you?
Nothing.
Like they have no enforcement power.
Well, I mean, there are certain things technically they could do. There's certain things they could do to you, but
when they're in there, it appears as though they have no fucking clue what's actually happening in a normal man's life. Like they don't have no idea.
They don't live in the real world.
What? People they want to tar and feather? What?
The internets? What are the internets?
So, not to take anything away from Sean Ryan or his guest. Great show. Great show. The Discovery Channel and History Channel 20 years ago did a thing about Grid Down. And they actually showed if you were to take out this substation in the San Diego desert on the Arizona border, you would knock off the entire West Coast from this thing. Like
it actually happened
more than once. People don't realize fucking everything above California was off for like 3 or 4 days. All of New York was off for 2 days. They had something trigger in San Diego, Arizona, that took power out all the way up into Canada.
Yeah, the reality is your comfortable life that you live is really, it's very fragile. We get to live the way we live because, I mean, let's face it, we're sandwiched between Mexico and Canada. The Canadians are never going to attack us, and even if they do, it would be laughable.
Should be the other way around. We were actually going to live here. We were actually going to attack Canada at one point.
Well, we did. There was a battle between Canada and the United States, but it was really British troops, not Canadian troops. But
have you seen?
Maybe Canada one day will attack us since they are going full Chinese.
Have you seen any of the media this morning showing all the Mexican military equipment that's amassing on the California border?
Whatever.
Have you seen all the stuff over the weekend about all the movement of military equipment throughout the United States and the staging areas and like downtown Chicago?
I saw some of that stuff, but it's like again, people, you need to calm the fuck down. You need to calm down. 3 armored vehicles driving through Chicago.
They weren't. They didn't even look like. They looked like recovery vehicles.
Well, it was 2.
There was an Oshkosh in there.
Yeah, it was 2 of the Army's, whatever their 8-wheel troop carriers are. I can't think of the name of them. And then an Oshkosh refueling vehicle.
Because when I saw it, I just figured maybe it was like for a Father's Day parade or something.
It could be. It could be for anything. It could be that the fucking. The National Guard, the local National Guard Armory was getting 2 new vehicles. It could be for anything. Again, guys, I know you don't understand this because most people who even live in Europe don't understand this. America is huge. It's huge. And we do not have the military footprint to hold Los Angeles, let alone the United States.
Especially with all of our equipment abroad.
Yeah, we don't have the manpower to do that. So when you see a train going through your neighborhood, with a bunch of tanks on it. It's going to Barstow. They're going to repaint those bitches and they're going to refit them. When you see some LAVs driving through your neighborhood, they're doing a dog and pony show for recruitment, or it's not the U.S. Army taking over because they can't. We don't have the manpower.
There were a bunch of Ospreys in motion that were landing and some shit happened.
Yeah, there was probably some exercise or some training thing they were doing.
Yeah, the Blackhawks came into UTC at one point and did kind of a true thing.
Yeah, so I'm not worried about that. And then
if the United States was attacked, do we have enough people and equipment inside right now?
Oh, if the United States was now, that's a different animal, because now we're massing our efforts towards.
Could the United States ever be attacked without a preemptive nuclear attack?
Okay, current world, no. There's no one in the world. Remember, I'm going to say this out loud. There's no one in the world that has the lift capability to put troops in the United States. They don't have the lift capability. So the Chinese.
What about all them Chinese in Canada?
Again, they don't have the lift capability. And then all those, you have to remember that those Chinese, like let's just say that China snuck in 100,000 troops
to Canada.
They put 100,000 troops in Canada in some secret underground tunnel system, and they dig across the border and they pop out in fucking Oregon, and they're like, "Aha, we got you." They're completely strategically cut off from any resupply, reserves, anything. The Chinese can't bring it here. Even if they got every heavy lift aircraft they had and they flew over the United States 24/7 dropping fucking pallets for these guys, within a week, the Oregon militia would eat those guys up and be fucking running around with Chinese helmets and shit.
Is there an Oregon militia?
I'm sure that there is still an Oregon militia.
I've been hearing about like the militia stuff so far off the radar. Like,
yeah,
if a dude showed up at our event, it's like, I'm with the militia. I mean, like, let me see your FBI badge.
Yeah. Well,
but apparently there's some really big fucking militias out there.
Well, Tennessee has
still a real one.
Has a legit Tennessee militia that you can join.
Where's headquarters?
I don't know. I actually thought about. There was a moment in time where I was like, because I had just crossed over the age limit for National Guard. I had just crossed over the age limit for National Guard, and then somebody was like, "You could join the militia."
Would you be a colonel or a general?
I'd be a PFC or some shit. I think the
you
way
come up through the ranks.
No, I think the way the militia in Tennessee works is it's whatever because it's all volunteer, so you're not getting paid.
So you get to choose your rank?
No, I think it's whatever you tapped out, because you have to be former military. And so I think whatever you left the services is what you get to be. And it's not like a militia where they're fucking, going to the range and shooting guns. It's a safety net for the governor. So they set up communications and stuff like that. So I don't know.
You and I knew a goober.
Well, I've known a lot of goobers.
He was big back 10 years ago. He was big YouTube, right? He was big on the YouTubes.
Yeah.
And he was going around telling people, so he was a prior Marine.
Okay.
And he was going around telling people
that
his
he was a colonel?
business card said he was a colonel.
Yeah.
He rolled in here and did some silly shit, had guns fucking laying out, and I'm like, "Hey, you parked, move your car. Secure those fucking weapons. Your windows are down. You've got guns falling out of your fucking car. When you got out, there's a gun fell on the ground and you just left it there. I see it on the camera. Somebody could steal that shit. Like, you don't know who's coming in here." But he was going around telling people he was a colonel in the Marine Corps and getting people to like give him free shit.
No, wasn't it he was a colonel? He had colonel on his card.
He led you to believe
yes,
he was a Marine Corps colonel, but he was a colonel in some militia.
Yeah.
And he was like Strider gave him knives, and these night vision companies gave him shit. He was saying, I'll advertise this and I'll use it in my videos. And he was taking that shit and selling it.
We are in the South, John. You could become a colonel. Colonel down here has nothing to do with military service.
I'm gonna do fried turkey though.
Colonel John Willis, formerly of the 277th Camden Militia.
Is there a militia where we get to wear black multicam?
I don't know.
Can I?
I mean, yeah.
Can I in Garrison at least?
Yeah, of course. In Garrison, you can wear whatever you want.
I think I'm gonna start.
Black multicam is hot though, John.
No, because I have air conditioning.
Oh yeah, you won't go outside.
Well, I go outside in air conditioning.
In air conditioning, yeah. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, we knew a guy. There's all types out there.
That dude was a turd. I told James when he let him around. I said that dude's a turd.
There's all types.
Okay.
All types.
Let's go to our next
question.
Next Patreon question.
Patreon.
I found you guys on YouTube. Consumed all of the available podcasts in 2 days. I can only find one on here. Where else can I find some pulling the thread? Aren't they close to 20 and count now? Okay, so here's the answer. Gijur? I'm sure I'm slaying your name, buddy. Are you in France? Helgeson? You watched the ones that are available to the public, which at the time was probably 9 or 12. There are actually 30. And if you're at our $10 membership level, it says join, I think, on YouTube there. If you're on an Apple phone, YouTube told Apple they had to do something, and Apple said, fuck you, we're not doing it. So you can't join from the phone. You have to join from a computer, or you have to go to you can't do it in the app. If you log into your YouTube through Google, which you should always use Google anyways if you're on iPhone. Fuck the Safari thing. Fuck all those guys. Anyways, there's a join, and there's a $1, a $5, $10. At $1, there's a ton of content in there that's not public. At $5, there's a ton of content, and you get pulling the thread earlier. But at $10, you get it immediately as current events. And just so you know, there are actually 30 episodes. This is episode 30 right here. And that's how you get it. This, although if you are not a member, this probably won't help you. It'll be quite a while from seeing this. I see somebody as SOE Tactical Leader actually answered this question. Dakota Graham. Does John still have the Badass Excursion? Would you ever get one of the new conversions they are doing with the new body style Super Duties? Scully, you're a badass.
No, I'm not.
Love y'all. Been here since the breakfast videos. I do have the Excursion. Would I do one of those cowboy conversion things where they do a 6-door? There's a couple companies doing them. They've been doing them for a long, long time out of Texas. I would like to have like a 7.3 Excursion with the 7.3 motor. Mine's got the 6.0. And you got to do a bunch of it's stock, right? It runs good, right? It runs real good. Well because we haven't fucking tuned it and programmed it and done a bunch of bullshit to it.
Yeah, it runs good. I want you to send it to Dylan Precision. Let them do a mod.
Oh, the roof mod for it?
The roof mod for it.
Man, I like those new Suburbans.
With just a really crazy ass squirt gun in the cradle. So you can pop up, be hosing people down.
I thought I wanted to get a Suburban or another Escalade or something like when they put it in like Transformers 2, that bad Transformer. Uh-huh. With the police Transformers, those were Suburbans. They looked badass. They were lifted. Have you ever thought of selling sewing kits with pre-cut material or putting on a sewing class? Yeah, we'll probably do a sewing class at some point where we bring people in and we'll all cut something, build something, and you'll go home with something. We'll probably do that at some point. We just did a chain. How do you think the chainsaw?
I loved it.
Did you learn some stuff?
I'm glad I went. Yeah, I learned a bunch of shit that I'm working too hard. And he made it like I say that I'm working too hard, but also there's a little bit of trickery there because he's a professional. He made it look too easy.
But dude, there's so much. Like I didn't know to stand on that side as opposed to this side. Yeah. Feed the wood chipper from the right side, not the left side, because it kicks back that way. And if a limb catches you, it'll pull you in there. Yeah. Like, man, there was just so much. I
was actually thinking yesterday. I was out at John's, and there's more trees that I have to cut down, and I was thinking, I wonder how much I would have to pay him to come out here and not cut any trees down, just come out and me be like, okay, this is where I want the tree to go. This is what I think I need to do to get the tree to go that direction. Is that what's going to happen? Because, you know, when he was doing tree fall directions, it was like, I want the tree to fall right there. This is how it's going to happen. This is how I'm going to do it. But man, I've had plenty of trees where I did the same thing. Did the same thing. And then the tree's like, fuck you, I'm going this way. Yeah,
you need to like watch one, do one, teach one.
Yeah, not even have him do it. I don't even want him to do them. I would just be like, hey, look at this tree, and me go, I think that this tree wants to go this way.
When do you want to do this?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
Like you really want to do it?
I do want to have him, but
guaranteed he doesn't have to bring his trucks and all this shit.
No, yeah, just him.
Guarantee I can get it to happen.
Yeah, just him.
Can we video it?
I don't see why not.
I guarantee we can do this.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's wait till it's not as fucking hot because he was sweating like a.
So he was supposed to be here the night before. They were coming down in a motorhome and everything. Yeah. And I don't know what happened, but I know they've been working up in Kentucky on some storm cleanup stuff.
Oh yeah.
So they came straight in like he was fucking tired, and then we realized like that motherfucker hadn't been drinking any water. Like he's been out there the whole time.
He didn't drink any water. You're right.
Yeah.
Shit.
So our guys kept like, here, drink this. Like even Jody brought me water, and I'm like, oh, that's good to go. Like I have not fucking the whole time I've been out here, and I was getting cooked with a hat on.
It was a great class. It was a great class.
So much information. Yeah. We need to do it again. We need to break it up to where it's not Chris, right? Yeah. Do Chris, Chuck. So something from Chris, and then medical, and then something from Chris, and then log splitter, and something from Chris, and wood, timber mill.
The other thing too is
breaks.
Not only that, but we
need to mic him up.
If you break it up like that, then it gives him time to set up the next thing, so people aren't standing around.
Yeah.
Because that's what was happening is people would get in their own conversations while the next setup was going on, and then it would be hard to get.
Plus, if we took a 15-minute break between each section or whatever, and took them over to, hey, come hold these chainsaws. These are all for sale. Hey, here's this thing. These are for sale. Hey, here's the medical kit. These are for sale. But because he can't talk loud. I'm like, I'm standing right next to him in the kitchen, just us, and I'm like, why are we whispering? What are we doing here? Like I can't hear you. So we need to, if we just fucking mic him up like you do with mine.
Which is weird. You would think that he would be loud.
I think
because all the
I'll bet you his hearing's damaged and he doesn't know fucking how loud he is
because of all the noise from chainsaw.
Okay, so do you have any experience with signal digital radios? I don't, and I do. Radio Made Easy. He will have the answers to that. Do you? Do you have any?
With what?
Do you have any experience with signal digital radios?
No.
Triangulation of radio transmission, etc., like DX and Fools.
I mean, it's super easy. It's super easy to triangulate locations now.
How?
All you're doing is you're using your finder to get a line, and then you just move. So all you do is you move, and it will create a triangle that points. You'll X cross your target. Beep 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 beep. But again, if you are using your radio right, and you're not broadcasting long signals, and you're not broadcasting at predetermined times, it makes it a lot harder for people to find you and move. You always
jump.
Move.
Yeah, channel jump.
And channel jump.
I know you're a knife guy, John, and you know a lot of makers. I'm curious why you don't get a pair of Leatherman Raptor shears or get someone cool to make you an ultimate set of shears. You could even add an integrated seam cutter, hem puller, stitch ripper, like a gut hook on the end of the knife, but have it done on one blade of the shears. Yeah, go ahead.
I can answer that question.
You don't have a radio pouch video, but you said to comment, so I'll leave the same thing. Perhaps I'm late. So, okay, radio pouch video. Go.
All the stuff that you just described is like 10 cents. If you make a knife, that'll be a $500 knife that John will lose in an hour. And so he'll still be using the stitch dehooker.
And it's about weight, man. Yeah. Nothing beats a stack of 100 fucking disposable razor blades. They come out just like utility knife razor blades. I use those when they're dull. And I swear to God, those things, if you leave them sitting in the air, it oxidizes them and makes them dull. Weight is the biggest thing. Weight. Like I have $200 scissors made of metal and shit. Dude, I use a $15 pair of scissors and I can drop them on the ground. And when they get sprung, I just throw them away.
Yep.
Because we bought this set of VTech telephones, these cordless phones. It came with 10 handsets for the shop in Oceanside. And within 2 months, we had like 2 handsets because motherfuckers would just fall in the trash can and people would not realize they were in there. And that's what was happening to all the expensive scissors. Like I spent thousands of dollars on like legit scissors, and within 6 months, we couldn't find a fucking pair of them. And I don't think the employees were taking them. I think they just got fucking put in the trash can.
Put in the trash, fell behind the desk, underneath some material, yeah.
Yeah, it's just weight, man. I use very light stuff because everything is just compounded. Now, as far as shears, Refuge Medical, Bear Independent, is actually working with a company right now for the only U.S.-made surgical shears. What are those EMT shears, trauma shears? There's not I challenge you, find a U.S. made manufacturer. One does not exist. They are very fucking close to bringing it to market right now. Bear is, and I think that's very cool.
Yeah, it is cool. If they can compete. The hard part is
the hard part is how
do you compete? Unless it becomes a very compliant thing, then
then
the military has to buy them.
Because I get hit up. I get an email every week from China, or Pakistan seems to be the big one for surgical equipment. We get hit up all the time, Pakistan, and they'll put our logos on them. They'll use our colors. They come in black, fucking like PVD'd and stuff. We've never bought any of them, but I challenge you, look at your shears. And a lot of the stuff that you have this perception that it's U.S. made, coming from these big U.S. like tactical medical companies, that shit's not. Well, you think it's U.S. made, that shit is not fucking U.S. made. They're coming out of fucking China and stuff. These come from the same company as these tourniquets. Oh, you mean you're making them in the same factory? No, they're coming from the same factory right here I'm standing in right now in China. Join Patreon to listen to the Pulling the Thread podcast, and I'm curious as to how often and where to listen to the most up-to-date episodes. They are the unlisted videos on Rumble. There are some unlisted videos on Rumble that are posted in the Patreon, ? It's 6/14/23, and the most up-to-date episode I see is 19 from April 10th. Just wanted to manage my own expectation. I could listen to John and Scully all day. We have way more than that out on
what's
YouTube
going on
right
what's
now,
going on in Rumble?
So Patreon, the podcast isn't going on Patreon. It's just for YouTube members. There will be separate stuff made for Patreon, but right now it's just for YouTube.
But what about Rumble? Why is there only 19 episodes on Rumble? We need to step up our Rumble game is basically what he was saying. Let's get
Rumble's not monetized. We have Rumble as a backup. We're eventually going to jump, because sooner or later we're going to be banned on YouTube. What's going to start happening is we're going to do the first hour. We're just going to start putting the first hour out, and then the rest of it, you'll be a member to get the rest of it is probably how we're going to do it, or do like an after show or another show where we do another segment or something.
Do you hear that, Rumble? You need to step up your game. Start
Rumble
pennies.
Rumble has, like Tim Pool, they do their from 7 to 9 with their guest, and then all the shit you can't say on YouTube, they go and do a live show on Rumble. And it's $5 a month,
which is anything. You can't say anything on YouTube.
You
can't spread truth on YouTube.
YouTube goes back and hits us for shit for videos from like 2 years ago.
Yeah, you can't spread truth on
Instagram.
YouTube.
Instagram keeps hitting me up. We've removed this tag, right? Like, so I'll have a product from 6 months ago, a year ago, for lever gun chest rig. It just happened with the lever gun chest rig. And they're like, we removed this link, and I'm like, okay, so dispute it, right? You go in to dispute it, and you type out your, this does not violate community guidelines. This is just a piece of equipment made of nylon thread and elastic. And that's typically what I would say. And then I'd submit it. And within half a day, they're like, okay, we've reversed it and the link is still there. Every time I click it now, it doesn't go anywhere. They've made it so that you can't dispute it. They just remove and kill the links, and you have no recourse.
That's why you got to call it a lever action rig. It's the gun.
It's getting to the point where you can't.
Part.
Yeah, you can't have any bullets in the picture. You can't have nothing. So it's getting crazier and crazier. I think that is
because the libs
of TikTok.
Is that the last one? I guess we need to ask more questions.
No questions. Just want to say you guys are cool. Thanks, John and Scully, for being badass. Blind man said that. Jonathan Thomas, just curious, what got you into the prepping mindset and where did you start? I'm sure you've answered this, but I'm new here. Love the content. Shalom and God bless. What got you into prepping?
I'm not a prepper.
I used to say I was a survivalist. Now that's a bad word.
I'm not a prepper.
Now I'm a homesteader. I think the ultimate goal of a prepper is to be a homesteader, right? Into
I
the
think
world
so.
Where you're going to go. You're going to go and find some.
The
zombie virus wiped everybody out. You're going to go take over a farm that hopefully has a well that still works and maybe has some solar. And
I'm just trying to survive. I'm not a prepper.
Yeah, we call it prepping. Grandma called it Tuesday. You think
you
think what you're doing's hard? Go live with a farmer for a little while. Go live on go live with some Amish people for a month or two.
That is true. My grandparents
Vanilla Ice did it. You can do it.
My grandparents, my grandfather, I asked him about the Depression, and he was poor from the start. Grandma was poor from the start. He's like, it wasn't that bad.
Yep.
He's like, it wasn't that bad. We were fine. I'm like, it was the Depression. He's like, wasn't that bad?
There was a lot of people in 2008 during the implosion of the fucking markets and shit that didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
If you're living week to week, if you're the dude at the gas station putting $5 in your gas tank, you probably have no idea when the fucking markets collapse.
I mean, prepping, it's just about what you want to do for your family and worst case scenario. Because even go to government, you go to your favorite 3-letter agency, whatever it is, and they're going to tell you even there that you need to have provisions for certain natural disasters or anything like that, and you just have to pick what you think is most likely going to happen in your area, and then just be prepared for that. Because again, if you have extra flashlight batteries in a little box in your closet, it's not hurting you. It's just helping you. Because if the power goes out, you don't have to fucking you don't have to get in your car and drive 10 towns over to steal all the fucking batteries where the lights are on. You can just turn your flashlight on and be like, hey, is everybody okay? You just need to prepare for the disaster that you think is most likely to happen. That's all.
So Iridium Solutions was here.
Iridium?
Right? Ed Hubble.
Okay.
I think he was here for SRF was the last time. And he's using the gym. And I have flashlights at every man door. And he took all the batteries out of them. I'm like, why did you take the batteries out of these? So I put them back in, and I'm like, oh, the batteries are really low, right? I hadn't tested them. So I go and bust open some brand new packs of C batteries, put them in, and they don't fucking fire off. So I take the old batteries and I put them back in, and they fire off very low. So then I get out the battery tester, and these batteries are fucking dead. They're brand new in the package, never been opened. Made a video about it, and there's a lot of comments, a lot of traction on that little short. But that's the thing, man. I had a ton of fucking because every time we go to Costco, I buy a package of batteries, whether we need them or not.
Your problem is, I would say your problem is a not a very good
PM schedule.
No, just one in, one out. Meaning,
sure,
you're not rotating. Yeah. You're not rotating the supply. You're just filling it up. And so if you rotate your supply, so whatever it is, let's say you buy fucking, you're buying extra tuna for yourself every month. You always want to take the tuna off the shelf when you put the new tuna in. That way, you don't ever have to worry about spoilage. Or same thing with the batteries. If you buy a pack of batteries, or let's say you buy 10 packs of batteries, pull the first 5 packs out and just sprinkle them around to everything that needs batteries, and those are the batteries that you use, right?
We just don't, like, when we were in the first house in Cedar Lakes, right, we had these They weren't even LED lanterns. They were fluorescent lanterns, these Colemans. And they ran on Cs. So we had a bunch of Cs. And then we bought these other ones that were LEDs, which are going to last, they're going to eat batteries way less, and they'll take Ds or Cs. So we just had a bunch of these battery packs, and now we're not using anything really with Cs. And the common comment was, get lithiums. You have to really search to find lithium C and D batteries anymore. And then I have a tuna fish story. Josh, chef, when he was here, he fed me all the time, and we just had this stuff in the kitchen, and he took care of the kitchen. Josh is not here working here any longer. So left to my own devices, I'm in the kitchen one day and I'm like, I'll have some tuna fish salad. I had a bunch of boiled eggs, put a couple boiled eggs, put 2 cans of tuna fish in there, put some mustard and some sweet relish. Nothing should go in. You shouldn't eat, dill relish shouldn't even exist. Dill pickles shouldn't exist. They should be bread and butter, right? Sweet pickles. Put your sweet pickle relish in there, a little bit of mayonnaise, mix it up. Tasted really metallic.
Yeah.
I ate it. I'm like, But it's the metallic taste stayed in my mouth afterwards. So I go get one of those cans out of the trash, 2013.
Yeah.
They're still fine. Yeah. This was probably a year ago. Yeah. I mean, I didn't die. People are constantly like, I hate MREs. Man, I actually like it. I don't mind MREs.
They're nothing like you think they are anymore. I mean, now they're just. Are
they better or worse?
They got fucking pizza and burritos and all kinds
Remember
of crazy
when we moved
shit.
in here? We moved in here with brown package, first Gulf War, the very first MREs. We ate them in the garage.
Yeah, those are classic.
No one died.
No one died.
Here's a couple more here. Hello, John and Scully. With the end of Title 42 ending across the United States and the COVID-19 emergency declaration ending as well on May 11th, what other consequence outcomes do you all predict will happen aside from the massive influx of illegal immigration that is expected? This is an old question.
Is it an old question? For the immigration thing,
we already saw it happen. It's happening now.
It's happening right now, but it's going to backfire. Democrats are usually the party that is like open borders, let them all come in. It's going to backfire on the Democrats because the people that are coming across the border, for the most part, have some very traditional values as far as family goes. And the Democrat Party has already said that it doesn't give 2 shits about the family, fuck the family. And so they're not going to get the votes that they think they're going to get out of those people crossing the border. It already backfired them with the Mexican vote or the Hispanic vote, and thinking that you're going to let 20 million people across the border that are going to go on welfare and then be like, hey, I really like Democrats. It's already backfiring on the Democrats. Like,
you see, RFK was down on the border, and he said the first group of 150 coming through were all Northern African.
Yeah.
And he said, this group right here is all Chinese. Now, there's no females. And maybe they separate the females and the kids from these people, but they're all combat age males, fucking from China, from Africa, from Pakistan.
It's an arduous journey that they make to get here. And so it is going to be predominantly male, but those males, are there evildoers within those groups? Of course, there's always evildoers, but predominantly those males are coming here because they're seeking out a better life for themselves and their families. Families usually in that type of migration, families come later. I'm going to get to the United States. I'm going to work at 4 car washes, 2 laundromats, and a fucking 7-Eleven. And when I have enough money, I'm going to send the money back to Senegal and I get my family here in a easier way than what I had to do. That's usually
they have to use a coyote to get here, or is there a legal means to them getting here?
It probably means a coyote. But when Brandel's trying to get to the United States, Brandel's not using a coyote. Brandel's like, I'm walking. He's not using a coyote. When he gets to the border and all the coyotes are like, we know the way in. Brandel's like, so do I. It's over there. I'm walking. Right. And so when you see coyotes, it's usually families that are being brought over with coyotes, or we'll just say people with not a lot of experience in cross-border operations. But when you got a guy that's coming from Africa, or you got a guy that's coming from the Middle East, he's already crossed 100 borders. He knows the drill. Did you
see RFK told he was on Rogan?
Yeah, RFK needs. Hey, bro, slow down. They killed your uncle. They killed your uncle. They'll kill you too, buddy. Slow down.
He said that
I know.
The CIA is going to assassinate him.
He needs to slow down.
Somebody's like, "Oh, that's horseshit," and Rogan tweeted out. I don't know who he was blasting at. He's like, "If you really believe that, come on the show and dispute RFK."
Yeah, he needs to slow down, or he is going to be eliminated.
Yeah, they seem to be killing motherfuckers left and right.
Only when there's a crime committed and they need to cover it up.
Hey guys, sorry for the long comment.
Oh.
I wonder if Scully can continue his rant on how current military leadership like Miley are so fucking terrible at their jobs and must go. I follow a lot of content from Mike Glover and Andy Stump, and they say the exact same thing. The thing they commonly say is those guys were too senior of an officer to even carry a rifle, much less fire. Where'd that go? Oh, that is a long comment. They were too senior of an officer to carry a rifle, much less fire it in battle. They don't know the feeling of adrenaline fear at 2:30 in the morning on a street corner, thinking you're about to die. Just wonder what Scully thinks is the problem with the current leadership and what needs to be done going forward. It feels like we're going to need some amazing leadership in the years to come. They need to tar and feather those motherfuckers.
We're never going to tar and feather them because we won't tar and feather our politicians. So that's not going to happen.
That's why it's never going to change.
Unfortunately, it will be the sacrifice. It will be the sacrifice of our youth is the only way that will change. Meaning, if you take a look at the Civil War, the Northern generals were fucking atrocious. It took many, many years of Americans dying on the field of battle before the cream of the crop, you could say, floated to the top, and we actually had some generals that were worthwhile. The problem with what's going on now is everybody has corporate and political aspirations outside of the military. And so if you're a general, that's what you're looking at. When you put a star on, you're no longer thinking about Lance Corporal Bonnats in the field. You're thinking about you're thinking about Northrop Grumman. You're thinking about the chairman of Joint Chiefs Staff. You're thinking about all these things that have nothing to do with warfighting. It used to be that I just spent a couple minutes bagging on MacArthur, but it used to be, well, he was a politician mostly. It used to be you would find generals every now and then that they were more concerned with warfighting. We don't have that anymore. They're all political pawns. I mean, the first thing I would do, magic wand. No enlisted or officer could serve in a position higher than the sergeant major or the commandant of the Marine Corps. So if you join the Marine Corps, your career aspirations end at the commandant's house. That's it. You can't be chairman of Joint Chiefs Staff. You can't be in charge of all forces in Afghanistan. Sorry. If you want that, join the Army. The Army, I wasn't making noise. The Army is for that stuff because Army's big. Marine Corps, you're not big enough to rate any of that. And plus, the pinnacle of leadership should be the commandant of the Marine Corps. It should be within the commandant, meaning all those general officers should be fighting for the commandant's position. And then the other thing I would do is I would put a 10-year hold on any government position or political position for any general officers. Meaning, if you have a star, you have to wait 10 years before you can run for another office, before you can go work for Northrop Grumman, before you can do anything. You have to become irrelevant before you can do any of those positions. Those are the things I would do. And you would immediately see a mass exodus of general officers because they want to do that they want to move into that position, okay? And then what's going to happen is people who really care about the troops and who really care about warfighting are going to fill those positions. So 10-year limit on any outside agency support, and don't let them fucking cry you a river and be like, oh, I can't live on that. A fucking general's officer retirement is, he never has to work again. Okay. He's doing it because he's a fucking power grubber. He's not doing it because he needs the money. It's bullshit. General officers don't need that. Okay. So 10 years before you could go work at goddamn Eureka Tent Company and then fill a contract for the Marine Corps. That's the way it should be.
How would you fix politicians?
I don't know. I don't know how. Well, I don't know how we fix that.
Term limits would probably fix
term
it.
limits. No, term limit. Contrary to popular belief, guys, don't fall into that trap. Term limits would make it worse. The reason why we have the problem that we have now, and the reason that you had you have this communist dictatorship that's in charge right now, is because of the permanent government. There is a permanent government, unelected officials who actually run the fucking government, not Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi does what the permanent government tells her to do. If you had term limits, it would be even worse.
So who do you think runs it?
Well, it's a cabal. It's a cabal of the FBI, NSA, the CIA. It's a cabal of powerful people who are there 24/7, 7 days a week. And those things need to be crushed.
Did you see Soros just handed the reins over to his son?
Oh, well, maybe we might get better policies.
No, I think they said his son was 37 or 47, but he's way more political, and he's been to the White House fucking a dozen times this year.
Usually I mean, I don't know. Bill Gates is probably just as evil as his father, but
Bill Gates has no children because his wife is a man.
Well, he doesn't have a wife anymore.
She wasn't
She left.
Like Michael Obama.
She left because of his
yes.
Epstein connection.
Yes. Have you not seen all the pictures
No,
of
I
them
haven't
when they were
seen
younger? Have you seen the pictures of Bill Gates dressed as a girl?
Nope, haven't seen it.
Yeah. It's there's a lot of it out
Well,
there.
I mean, he was pretty femme.
Have you seen the picture? Obama's didn't give birth to those kids, right?
Correct.
Because there's a penis down there.
Well, I mean, why not?
Have you seen this? Are you aware of it? You're not aware of this?
Hey,
Holy shit.
She did. I mean, she did dangle the dangle on Ellen DeGeneres, so.
Yeah. All right. I think we have one. Oh, I'm going in the wrong fucking thing. It looks like TikTok here. I lost it.
Oh, you lost it? TikTok.
Patreon.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know. It's a mad, mad world.
I do not. I do a terrible job of.
Are you looking that up right now? Did you get a picture? It came immediately up, didn't it?
Okay, no. Michael Keith. Survival question. If transportation wasn't an option to get to a bug out location, what percentage of people in America do you think would either be smart enough to find an alternative like a bike, for example? How many do you think would be walking and fail miserably due to other factors, i.e. physical fitness, overpacking bobs, not avoiding... Man, every time I expand this, I lose where I was. Overpacking bobs, not avoiding crowds, and being robbed by others. In my opinion, I feel a lot of people try to do the right thing and make preparations, but fail to see the big picture. Your thoughts?
I mean, it's a mad, mad world if you're on foot walking out of a fucking major metropolitan city. You better... I don't know. I mean,
if you have the idea, somebody else has the idea.
Yeah, it's a mad proposition that you're walking somewhere.
Be someplace. Don't have to.
The problem is this. The problem is whether we believe it or not, we're very tribal, and tribes will form immediately, and those tribes will prey on other tribes, and if they're not preying on tribes, they're going to prey on individuals. Okay, because those type of people always go for the weak hit. So like when somebody's like, "Oh, if you're in an armored vehicle, that's the vehicle we're going to hit." No, you're not. You're going to hit the fucking camper van because an armored vehicle has a bite. There's a bite to that. There's an unknown of what's in the back of that vehicle. There could be, 18 pipe hitters in there just waiting for your dumbass to come out with your Mosin Nagant and think you're going to fucking take them on. You're not going to hit. When I say you're not going to hit, what I'm saying is, those type of individuals that are out there saying, I'm just going to take from other people. What they're saying is they're going to prey on the weak, because they're not going to go after if there's a grandma pushing a cart full of cans and a dude with a backpack and an AR, they're not going after backpack and AR. Not in the post-apocalyptic world, because there's too many opportunities for you to get injured. And if you get injured, you're going to be fucked. You're just going to be fucked. You get some sort of infection, especially our weak asses running around here in the United States now, where we throw antibiotics at everything. Your body ain't gonna fucking. You get a gunshot wound to the pinky, you're losing your arm, bro. So it's weakness that they're gonna go after. So presenting the strongest front you possibly can is always the best. It's always the best, because even from a military perspective, like if you think of the military, what do we do when we attack a defensive? We exploit a weakness. We don't bash our heads against bunkers unless that's the weakest bunker possible. We exploit weakness. And that's what the scavengers of some sort of post-apocalypse world are going to do, is they're going to go after the weakest point. They're not going to, if they hear that, wanderers are hanged in Camden, Tennessee, they ain't coming to Camden, Tennessee.
Now, with that said, if you're the dude with the backpack and the AR-15, somebody's just going to shoot you. They're not going to have a conversation with you. If you're out there in the open where they see you, shoot first, ask questions. If you're moving with women and children, women are going to be a commodity. When society collapses and you have that bad element that packs up, your women is what they are after. So you better move in a manner where they don't fucking see you. The better plan is not to have to bug out of the city. Don't be in the fucking city.
Yeah, definitely don't be in the city.
If we're having this conversation, be someplace better than where you are.
People will do extraordinary. Here's the problem. The problem is, if you're in a city, you can look this up. It's pretty easy to find out. Most cities only have 48 hours worth of food. Gets trucked in every fucking single day.
Multiple times all day.
Yeah, but if the trucks stop running, you probably got about 48 hours of food on the shelf. If there's a panic because the truck stops running, then that food will disappear at a fucking exponential rate. But do not put yourself in a situation where you have to find out what your neighbors will do to keep their child from starving or keep themselves from starving. You don't want to be in that situation. So if you really are, worried about that type of scenario, you need to move the fuck away from people, because people will do the damnedest things when they're hungry. And they will do things that are completely out of character when they're hungry. So your best friend that lives next door, if you did the right thing and you got 48 hours of food in your house because the CDC told you to do that, or actually, I think the new CDC guidelines is a week.
No, I think
if you got a week's worth of food,
90 days.
Could be. That would make sense because of viruses. But if let's say you got a week's worth of food in your house and your neighbor gets Uber Eats every fucking night, it's only going to take him 3 days. It's only going to take him 3 days before he's going to come looking for food. Now, I know what most people are going to say. Give him a can of beans. It's your neighbor. Yes. If you can help, you should help. But when I say your neighbor, I'm talking about all your fucking neighbors. As soon as he gets a can of beans, everybody else is going to want a can of beans. And where do you put the limit? When you are starving or your children are starving because you did the right thing and everybody else laughed at you while you were doing the right thing, you have to put a limit on that kind of stuff. And you have to decide where the limit is. I had a friend who I had a friend that would buy food. He'd buy food for himself. So he'd be like, okay, I'm going to get this Mountain House beef stroganoff, and I put it over here. And then he would go buy a number 10 can, a number 10 paint can, and he would vacuum seal a pound of rice and a pound of beans.
Is this Kurt?
This is Wojcik.
Okay.
I mean, not Wojcik. I'm sorry, Stojak.
Okay.
He would vacuum a pound of rice and a pound of beans into this paint can, and then he would put that over here. And that was his. If you show up at the door, you get the paint can. This is all the help you're going to get. You only get it once. Keep moving. After that, too bad. Which was his way of dealing with his conscience.
Somebody tagged me in something from a tank from Battlefield Las Vegas the other day, and they said, "Hey, I think this is the guy's tank that Jeff was talking about."
It is.
Yeah.
If you see that Sherman tank, I really want to give them a picture. I think next time I'm out in Vegas, I'll go to Battlefield Las Vegas and give them the picture of me, Billy, and Steve standing in front of that tank. Because it kind of bums me out. They don't mention Billy on there, and they wouldn't have that tank if it wasn't for Billy.
Machine Gun BB, friend requested me the other day.
Oh, yeah.
I think on Facebook.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
good.
and if your prepper plan is that you're in the camping aisle at Walmart and you've got all your shit in a little tackle box or something, you're probably not making it either. I know there's dudes that are like, I can go out in the woods with just what's in my pocket. I know. I see Canterbury do it all the time, but your wife and your kids can't fucking do that.
And the other thing too is when you think about hunting deer, or that's your go-to. If we're talking about a real event, a big event, if it's localized, that's different, right? If it's localized,
if it's localized, help's probably coming.
Help's coming eventually, you'll probably be able to get some help in like 3 days. If it's localized, that's different. If we're talking about a nationwide event, you ain't hunting shit. You're not fishing anything. Unless you live in a fucking remote canyon in Boise, Montana somewhere, it's not happening because everyone is thinking the same thing you are. There's going to be herds. Every major metropolitan city, there's going to be herds of people that are going to be moving towards the country in order to find food. Once those cities have no food available, those herds are going to be moving. It's no different than all the property that was bought up during COVID here because everybody was trying to get out of the goddamn cities. Those herds are going to gobble up everything. Bugs, rats, deer, mice, and whatever the fuck.
When it gets to that point and you end up on some woods that looks good and there's probably some deer here, if the dude that's around there and that's his stomping grounds, he's going to kill you over that.
Maybe. I mean,
there is somebody out if it gets to that point.
I know. Depends on how big of a herd you bring. Be useful. That's the other thing. If you live in the city and you live in the city because you have to, right? Because I get it. Some people are stuck where they're at. Become useful. Go get an EMT class. Store some medical gear. Become useful. Go learn how to be a dentist. Become useful because all those things at the end of the world are going to be they're going to be popular. Nobody like if
the bookkeeper doesn't have much use.
Yeah, but I'm just saying you can be a bookkeeper. Go get your EMT license so you also know how to fucking splint and bandage wounds and shit because that guy's going to be real popular. Even for bad guys, right? When the bad guys find out that you know how to do medical treatment, they're going to at least keep you. At least keep you. Hopefully they'll treat you a little better than everybody else because they understand that if they get a boo-boo, they're going to need you. But just get some sort of viable skill because again, let's say you do have to flee with your family and you come up to fucking Fort Camden and there's a big wall around Camden and dude's standing on the wall with guns and you're standing outside. You want to be able to go, hey, I'm a fucking doctor, or I'm an EMT, or you want to have something. I'm a dentist, even a dentist. You want to get to the gate and give them a reason to open that fucking gate. You want to have a reason for them to open that gate and let you in. Not, I'm a computer software engineer. Well, fuck it, dude. Sorry. I think they need you in the next town, Jackson. You make sure you have some sort of skill set, something that you bring to the table, that you can articulate to whoever, because you might be able to find refuge somewhere solely because you have a skill set that, like, you know, I don't know, I can distill corn into fuel and get all your cars running, whatever. Make sure you have some sort of skill that people can use.
And while we're having that conversation, if you turn the electricity off in your house,
yeah,
just pull the breaker, camp inside, see how that goes. See what you have stocked up that you didn't use, and see what you wish you had. Right? Check that out. Bill says, John, I'm willing to bet since the Great War on Terror has ended and they are worrying about China, that old school Rallyman vests and the old style deuce gear is going to be selling again. Active guys are saying they are ditching plate carriers, and dudes are back to the old style stuff. Would like to hear what the bearded Yeti that sits next to you has to say on this.
Randall, what do you got? Are people ditching the plate carriers? No, probably not like you think. Maybe I'm sure the ninjas. I wouldn't even. Again, is Delta running around? I'm sure there are specific types of mission sets where people are ditching plate carriers because they are heavy, and if you got to do, long range reconnaissance, that weight can be turned into something else, whether that's food, water, or ammo. But then again, this is the United States. Our military is kind of spoiled. Even the ninjas, they don't fucking do long range reconnaissance on foot anymore. They're vehicled up. So I don't think people are ditching the plate carriers as much as we think, because there's not an arrow out there that is defeating the armor. Once the Chinese or the Russians or the cartels put an arrow out there that makes the armor useless, then yes, we will ditch them. But, the simple fact is, like, general officers are not going to authorize troops to ditch those plate carriers for the simple fact is they do not want moms of America calling them and going, why did my son die from a fucking gunshot wound to the chest? Didn't we just spend billions and billions of dollars on stuff that would protect them? And at that point, when they're having those congressional level discussions, nobody wants to hear, they needed to lighten up their load so they could move faster. They don't want to hear that. I mean, they don't want to hear it. What they want to hear is that the best equipment in the world is protecting their children. And so, they're probably not ditching him, but again, the old school stuff is providing a little bit more flexibility for the type of missions that they're going to be doing as far as more, dismounted operations, because we've been in the desert, we've been fighting a lot of mounted operations. And so the equipment gets shaped around getting in and out of a vehicle all the time. And so all that stuff on the front, it's the only way to do it because you're sitting in a vehicle, you can't have canteens and shit like that. But then that requires all that extra stuff to be in a backpack that you have to carry and get out of the vehicle every time, or just on the vehicle. So if we go to dismounted operations, which is what we will be doing with the Chinese, then you need an equipment set that allows you to carry everything you need to fight and also survive with in the bush. So I see that stuff definitely coming back. People starting to use it more and more because we're going to start shying away from vehicles, because with current technology and the way we're using drones to direct artillery, a vehicle is a way too big of a target. So we're going to start doing much more dismounted stuff.
All those old LBVs and all that equipment fits right over armor.
Yeah, it fits right over armor. So
you can still wear armor. Everything we make will go over that. Let's talk lastly about the Ukrainians pushing the Russians back and retaking Bakhmut.
I don't know if they've completely taken Bakhmut. I know that they were on the outskirts, but they are pushing.
Would you say that their standard combat loadout is 6 magazines?
I'm sure that the Ukrainian military has a much different idea about what combat is than most of the armchair warriors that commented about that in their basement.
So there's some video footage out there, right?
Yeah.
What is that video footage showing?
So if you watch any of the real combat footage that's coming out of Ukraine, you'll see that the British guy, we only shoot at what we see, and 6 magazines is all you need.
One shot, one kill, one body for every bullet.
6 magazines is all you need. You'll see that it's really bullshit when you're in real combat. Like, these guys are, not only are they carrying more than 6 magazines, I mean, I've seen extra loadout, like they're putting it on the front like we do, but then you can see the pouches on the side that have magazines in them. I don't know how many they're carrying in there. But more importantly, the thing that is very interesting is every time they pass a fucking Russian bunker. So these guys are fighting hard and pushing forward. I mean, they're fighting.
It's trenches, guys.
Feet at a time.
They have equipment that comes in and makes trenches. They're building. They have bunkers set up
Yeah, but every time they pass a fucking, first off, they shoot the shit out of every bunker and then throw every spot where troops are, and then throw like 10 grenades in there. But as soon as they pass that fortification, they have a group of guys that the only thing they do is dive in those fucking fortifications and just pull ammunition out, pull mags out. And so when you see the guys that are toe to toe, tip of the fucking spear against the Russians, 90% of them are carrying AKs. The reason why they're carrying AKs is because the Russians are carrying AKs and that ammo is sitting on the ground. And so they're jumping in and, pulling out whatever weapons they can find, whatever ammunition they can find. I am really surprised I'm really, really surprised that the Russians aren't booby trapping this shit. But they are pulling all that stuff out of those trenches and they are redistributing it immediately. I saw a video of a dude who had he had like a sleeping bag pouch that was just full of magazines, and he ran from a 113 all the way up to where these guys were at, and he's just throwing mags to people. Boom, 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 throwing mags to people. And you can see that the dudes that are the tip of the spear, they are firing that ammo as fast as they can get their hands on it, because that's real combat, guys. Real combat is what's going on in Ukraine and between the Ukrainians and the Russians right now. It is fucking messy. It is terrible. It is fucking horrific. There Russian and Ukrainians, good guys, bad guys, it doesn't matter. Conscript soldiers and professional soldiers, they are seeing shit they're seeing combat at a level that we have not seen since World War II. It is fucking horrific for those guys. I mean, both sides. I feel sorry for both sides when this is all over, because you're going to have a generation of dudes that have seen some crazy shit. Just killing on a level that, again, we have not seen since probably Korea.
Entire cities are just gone. Entire towns.
Yeah, well, I don't understand when people
rubble.
When they talk about retaking Bakhmut, I don't know why the Ukrainians are even bothering with Bakhmut. It doesn't exist.
It's like they went through with sledgehammers and broke up every fucking single cinder block.
It doesn't exist.
Fucking brick
you
left.
might as well just drive right around Bakhmut.
But that's what. So if we had civil war here in the United States, would we see trenches installed and foxholes and stuff like that? Like, because they have these pieces of equipment over there that are cutting trenches. They have hundreds and hundreds of miles of trenches over there.
The Russians are because of what happened in World War II. The Russians are uniquely geared to defensive operations. So they have, the truth is when 17 goes out in the desert and they're like, dig in, we're still using e-tools. Like we still unfold the shovel and we're fucking digging. Yeah. There's engineer equipment that they've bought and it's sitting somewhere in the United States that never gets used. The Russians, they have a shovel. They have a shovel truck where it's just shovels spinning that will, I want to say it'll cut 10 miles of trench a day. And then they have an auger truck that looks like the drill that they use to make tunnels, that it just cuts trench. He just drives. And so they're not really They're not really using shovels, even though they do still use shovels to a certain extent. But they can cut so much trench and create so many defensive positions that this is going to be the problem for the Ukrainians, because the Ukrainians have to go in the open. They have to get through Russian artillery. They have to get through the Alligator helicopters. They have to get through all that in the open to get to where these trenches are. And, the Russians, there are some places, I've seen some videos where the Russians aren't putting up a terrible fight, where the Russians they are retreating.
That's because those are conscripts.
They are retreating and stuff, but they're putting up enough a fight. They are putting up enough fight that the Ukrainians, love them to death. The attrition rate, they can't sustain this. They're not going to be able to sustain this. The goal of any armored operational force is to immediately break through the front lines, the enemy's front lines, and move within the back area, right? What I want to do is I want to punch right through their fucking defensive positions, and then I want to get in the back area so I can destroy all the logistical support capabilities that unit has. And now the guys in the trench have to fight both ways, right? Usually you want to do some sort of encirclement. The Russians have stopped all that. They've stopped the Ukrainians from being able to do that. Ukrainians cannot. The Ukrainian military does not have the manpower to go toe-to-toe with the Russians and slog it in. This can't be 1914. We can't have Ukrainians in a trench over here and the Russians over here, because, unfortunately, the Russians, conscripts or not, they have the manpower. The Ukrainians are facing the same problem that the Germans did. We don't have enough bullets, and we don't have enough people to fight all these untrained conscripts. That's the truth of it. So,
you think Russia's out of real troops?
No. What Russia is doing is Russia has never been really good at offensive operations. They're very good at defensive operations. So what they are doing is they are putting conscript soldiers. So the first people that the Ukrainians are making contact with are conscript soldiers, and those conscripts are. I don't even want to put them in a National Guard level of training. They're probably below National Guard level of training. They don't have real training, but to a certain extent, they are putting up a fight, and they are hurting Ukrainian forces. They're using the Russians are using the bulk of their real forces as reinforcements. So whenever you hear about a counterattack, when the Russians are counterattacking and they retake a town from the Ukrainians, those are going to be real. That'll be fucking, real paratroopers, real whatever, real army guys, not conscripts. And then what the Russians will do is they'll retake those positions. They'll put conscripts in the fucking back in the trenches, and they'll pull that force back in order to fill another void somewhere else. How long the Russians can do that, I don't know.
They just kill everybody, or they take prisoners.
Okay, remember this is all. This is a war about narrative. It's a war about narrative, and they are still. I bet people don't know this, but the Russians and the Ukrainians meet on a fucking bridge, and they trade prisoners. They have been doing this since the war began. For every Russian we give back, for every Russian the Ukrainians give back, they give the Russians give a Ukrainian prisoner. So they do a prisoner exchange. So are the Russians wholesale killing their prisoners? I am sure it's happening, but they're not killing them all. They can't be, because they're doing exchanges for for their own guys. Are the Ukrainians wholesale killing Russians? I'm sure it happens, but I'm sure that they're not, because the crazy thing is one of the most close combat videos I've seen is these guys are in yelling range. Like, they are yelling. This Russian is shooting a fucking machine gun, a PKM at him, and they are laughing about it because he's not hitting anything. And they are yelling at him, "Hey, fucker, surrender." we won't kill you if you surrender. Just surrender. And he keeps shooting, and they're like, God damn it, we're going to have to kill this guy. And he's like, even when they go to throw the grenade, the guy's like, I have a grenade. I'm going to throw it at you. Surrender. And he doesn't surrender, and they throw the grenades. Now, I seen another video where a Russian surrenders to a drone. This dude is in the middle of nowhere. It's a pretty good video. His entire unit gets killed, and he's in this trench line. And the Russians like to drop grenades on people, and he's like, I don't have a weapon. Don't drop a grenade on me. And they actually communicate through the drone and get this guy to follow the drone back to Ukrainian lines to surrender. And he said, when they were debriefing him, he was like, yeah, because he was really worried that the Ukrainians were going to get him and then just kill him. And he, when they did the debrief, they're like, why didn't you just surrender? And he's like, well, because all we've been told is that you just kill prisoners, that you don't take prisoners, you just kill them. And so they're just as afraid of the Ukrainians as they are the Russians. So, I mean,
what do you think the Russians are doing with those guys that are getting back? Are they punishing them for surrendering, or?
Well, there is word that those guys are going. I think it depends on how they were captured, but there is word that they are ending up in jail. That if you just gave up your position in jail, because they are also saying, the conscripts are also saying that just like World War II, if you turn and run, who's behind you? The regular Russian forces are behind you, and regular Russian forces will shoot you if you fucking run from your position. So that's why you're seeing these guys, you're seeing these Russians, there's a lot of videos of these Russians who are staying in positions that are unobtainable, that they can't, that they're fucking completely surrounded, they're outnumbered, and they're just staying in these fucking positions. I saw one where, like, they're in the end of the foxhole. They have run all the way down to the end of the trench. There's nothing left but open ground. And the Ukrainians are fucking hammering them pretty hard. And instead of surrendering, they try and crawl out. Like, they try and crawl out into the grass, and they kill every one of them. And that can only be because they fear that they're going to get killed anyways.
So if we had civil war here, would we have fighting like that?
I don't know. It just depends. It depends on how, how it. Civil war here is not going to look.
If we locked off the state,
might look more like Bosnia.
If we locked off the state of Tennessee, would we put entrenchments in like that?
It depends. If let's say Texas, I'll say Texas, because they could do it. If Texas secedes from the Union, and the current federal administration's like, nope, sorry, you can't secede from the Union. We're sending troops down. Then you might see trench warfare, because the thing about trenches is trenches help protect you against artillery. And the reason why you haven't seen the reason why you haven't seen trenches really in a long time is because artillery has not been used in the way it's used or has been used in this war. Like in this Ukrainian war, the artillery is the king of the battlefield. They are firing so much goddamn artillery that if you didn't have a trench, you would dig one yourself, because it's unbelievable. Now, the thing I find weird about all the trench warfare or all the stuff over there is the Russians don't do any overhead cover. And because they don't do any overhead cover, the Ukrainians are like flying their drones over and dropping grenades on dudes that are sleeping in their trench.
What would you do for overhead cover?
Anything.
Just to block vision?
Anything to block vision, so they can't see that. So you can't see that they're in there. But even if you were just to do fucking wood cover, right? For the most part, the drones that they're using are just like your little guy. And so the biggest thing they can drop is a hand grenade sized warhead. And so if you can put anything between you and a hand grenade, they're not that effective. They're not as effective.
What happens when it rains?
They fucking, that's the thing. They suffer. Those motherfuckers are just sitting there in those goddamn trenches suffering.
Like, once it fills with water, it's never going to evacuate unless you pump it.
Well, they have certain things that they can do to drain and make spots dry, but if you take a look at any of the footage during the winter, even the Ukrainians, when you're in trenches and it's raining, it's fucking miserable. It's just not a fun place to be. Let alone just move around in them, you know. And we're not World War I proofing them, meaning we're not putting wood decks in so the water flows underneath the wood and you walk across the wood. So it's just sludging through mud. But not a lot of stuff is happening in the winter.
Yeah, I hope we never.
Yeah, I mean,
see that shit.
I hope we never see it, but it won't be like that. It won't be. It's not going to be north against south because the problem is it's a political system.
It's going to be Prius against fucking Super Duty.
Well, it's a political system.
You're gonna know your enemy because
they live right next door.
It's a little girl with fucking butch shaved Kool-Aid hair, and she's probably wearing a fucking COVID mask.
They live right next door, so it'll probably be more like Bosnia, where it'll just be madness for a while, and then lines will form, and some places will be safe. I don't know. I just remember it'll be crazy.
Bosnia, Sarajevo, Herzegovina, all that shit, fucking massive graves. Mm-hmm. Like they fucking wholesale just fucking killed people, put them in a pit, and put dirt on them.
Yes, and they killed people with sledgehammers.
That's what happens a lot of times when you have people in fucking prisons and camps and shit. They fucking killed all those fucking people when they thought that they were about to get overrun and they were going to be found out, mm-hmm. Man. They fucking killed all of those people.
Yep. Yeah, that's the terrible part about gun control. Sierra Leone, they killed 10,000 people with machetes.
Jamaica, they were hacking people up in Jamaica with fucking machetes.
Yeah, that's only possible if you have gun control.
Yep. And what else? Every single place where they have had gun control, that is what comes next.
Yep. A cleansing, so to speak.
Yep. You're going to be on the wrong side of it.
Yeah, man, I'm talking about realest, one of the realest to try.
Not you.
Or maybe. I don't know.
All right, guys, that was episode 30. Right after that, we rolled in and answered a bunch of questions from some other videos that are going up on Patreon. So if you want to participate, Patreon is only $5. You can jump up there, ask questions. This video, you saw us read a bunch of questions in this video that came from Patreon. So we're kind of working back and forth both ways. So there's benefits to be on both platforms. So join in, jump on there. Check out some of our sponsors, Radio Made Easy, Benchmark Signs and Gifts. And if you want to come in, if you've got a company and you want to participate and be part of what we're doing, and you want to discuss some sponsorship or something, just reach out to us and we will go from there.